So let's, ping your folks also. Let's ask them to join in.
I am Bhaskar Bose from Calcutta.
Hey, Bhaskar, welcome, welcome.
Hello, Juda.
Hey, welcome, Bhaskar. Great, great. So, let's wait for a few more minutes. Let's the folks coming in. Different geographies, different time zones. So obviously, and so get ready with your question. As I mentioned, we will start with introduction to, welcoming message to Swapanda, and then Dr. Saab will, add his point to introduce him and the great work that American for Hindus is doing. And eventually, like, we'll open it up. We'll, just raise your hand in Zoom so that I can call your name and unmute you so that you can ask the question. So that's how we'll do it. It will be an amazing session. I can see Dave joining with the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh,
see Shomji with his Manchester United jersey. So everybody with their best self is here. Great. Pupitro, you are a little hazy. Is it, what's happening there in Muscat, buddy?
Hi, you there?
Hey,
am I not visible properly?
You are not very, a little bit of, it seems to be some glass or something. We have Shishirda joined us. Thank you. We have Manozda joined. Shishirda, welcome, Shishirda. Shishirda, you all know Shishir Bajoria ji, one of our inspiration, who is the main person behind making this happen. So great to have Shishirda joining. Shishirda, people from all over the place joining, different geographies, as I was telling you, from Canada, from UK. We have Mrinmoida from Dallas joined. Shailesh ji, namaste. Akash bhai, namaste. Rishi, with a beautiful Ma Durga's picture on his profile pic.
Namaste, bhaiya.
Bagri, our brother who is amazingly popular in Twitter. I was talking to him last night. So passionate he is. Great to have Rishi. Amit Da, AI Guru. We have JDG, again another Bay Area guy with a Golden Gate Bridge on the back. We are very lucky to have someone, you all have heard of this beautiful song, right? Sun Raha Hai Na Tu, Roda Hu Main. So our pride, our own, Sandeep Nadda has joined, the lyricist of that beautiful song and many other songs. So he has joined. Sundipda, where are you, Sundipda? Sundipda, I can see you. Awesome, awesome. You are mute. You need to unmute yourself, Sundipda. You need to unmute, Sundipda. We can't hear you. We can see your lip service. Perfect, perfect. Sundipda is here. Sundipda, एक दो लाइन हो जाए संदीपदा आपके तरफ से.
देखिए अभी स्वपन दा के साथ ये सेशन है और बहुत सारे दोस्त जुड़ेंगे, तो कि इस पर मैं एक लाइन देता हूं कि दर्द कोई दिल को मेरे तोड़ता नहीं, आता है तूफान असर छोड़ता नहीं, साथ मेरे बांटता है वो सभी चीजें, संग मेरे पर वो रिश्ता जोड़ता नहीं. तो लेकिन इसके बाद जो मैं एक खासकर जिस शेर को कहना चाहता हूं कि दिल की बातें पता न कर, सुलगी आग में हवा न कर, दिल की बातें पता न कर, सुलगी आग में हवा न कर, ज्यादा जी के करूंगा क्या, ऐसी कोई दुआ न कर. और ये अब शेर है जिसपे मैं सबका ध्यान चाहूंगा कि सोच समझ के छला तुझे, इन लोगों से वफा न कर.
Awesome, awesome. So Swapanda, we have Shishirda. You probably know Shishir Bajoria ji, one of our very, very own, and who takes care of the Videsh Vivag also with Vijay Chauthale ji. And since he's from Calcutta, he's from Bengal, he's our very own. And we talk a lot of things about how strategically we can help 2021 campaign. He's one of the main guy to make this happen. So great, Shopanda, Shishida, Minmoida, everybody joining. I see Shopanda coming in, so let me admit him. Shopanda, welcome, Shopanda. We have to give little more time. We already have 60 people, but a lot of people are just, crippling in. So we have to give little more time.
I'm seeing Mrinmoy after Houston. Hey, how are you? After Howdy Modi.
নমস্কার শিশিরদা, কেমন আছেন?
ভালো ভালো, তোমরা ভালো তো?
চলছে দাদা।
Very good, very good. So let us keep pushing, guys. Let us ask the other folks to join in so that we can get going. I see Anirban joining. Great. Shopanda, thank you so much for joining. Shopanda, you have to little unmute yourself, Shopanda.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely, Shopanda. You can see the excitement. I can tell you, people from Auckland right now. It's 4 a.m. We have 2-3 people joining from there, so that shows the excitement. Leave up, about the North America, PST, CST, EST, Canada. People joining from Vancouver, Toronto. People from Dubai, Muscat, Kuwait, even Africa so far, like Nigeria and the Kenyas, and also the UK. This time UK folks are very happy because we have a civilized time. So you just have to give us little more time, Shopanda, as more folks.
Okay.
Thank you. Everyone want to say a big hi to Shopanda? Just unmute yourself and say a big hi to Shopanda.
Hello.
Shopanda, namaskar.
Namaskar.
নমস্কার দাদা।
নমস্কার দাদা।
নমস্কার দাদা। নমস্কার দাদা।
নমস্কার দাদা।
Namaskar, welcome.
Namaskar Shopanda, this is Anirban from Calcutta.
নমস্কার।
Welcome, Shopanda. This is Pavitra from Dubai.
হ্যালো পবিত্র, কেমন আছেন?
বেশ ভালো আছি,
Shopanda.
আপনি কেমন আছেন?
Chinmoy from Siliguri.
আচ্ছা,
Namaskar Shopanda, this is Sandeep from Orlando.
Shopanda, I am Bhaskar Bose from Calcutta. Namaskar, Shopanda.
নমস্কার।
Good morning.
Good morning.
From San Francisco.
Well, it's good evening here, more likely.
Good evening.
Namaskar, Swapanda. This is Deepan Dev from Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area.
Good evening.
স্বপনদা নমস্কার।
Namaskar, Shapanda. Yet another Anirban from Bangalore.
Hello, Anirban.
স্বপনদা নমস্কার, this is
Hello, Swapanji. I still have a copy of the magazine that you edited when you were in Calcutta, I guess, right after Ram Janambhoomi. And so nice to see you.
Yes, lovely interacting.
Namaskar, Shapanda. This is Joydeep from San Francisco.
Hello, Joydeep.
Shapanda, namaskar. This is Rakhi Mitra from Kolkata.
Hello, Rakhi.
Namaskar, Sapna. This is Shachindranath from San Francisco.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. Hope you are doing fine too.
Shapanda, Rishi Bagri from Kolkata.
Hello, Rishi.
Hello, sir.
Shapanda, this is Tamal Das from Kolkata.
Hello, Tamal.
Shapanda, this is Suptik. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
From Hong Kong, right? You have to tell the place.
Hong Kong, yes.
It must be pretty good. Hello.
কত বাজে এখন?
ওখানে 12টা বেজে গেছে তো।
Shapanda,
12টা না, হ্যাঁ 12টা জাস্ট বাজলো, 12টা 7, হ্যাঁ।
মানে এর 12টা বাজেনি, হংকং এ 12টা বেজে।
12টা বেজেছে কিন্তু বাট দিস ইজ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। দিস
Shopanda, সত্যিকার 12টা বহুদিন ধরে বেঁচে আছে।
আচ্ছা, you want me to
স্বপনদা
speak
নমস্কার,
for
আমি
all?
রাহুল ওঝা ফ্রম সিঙ্গাপুর। আমাদের
Hello,
এখানেও
Rahul. হ্যাঁ,
রাত 12টা বেজে গেছে।
হ্যাঁ।
Awesome. I
Well,
can see Pandya ji joined from Canada, right?
নমস্কার স্যার, আপনার সঙ্গে নেন করে
Jidadija Shoma join করলাম.
Shoma, welcome, welcome. Shopanda is here. You might want to say hello to him.
Hi Shopanda, Shoma from Bombay.
hello, Shoma.
Hi.
Hi,
Love to meet
Shapunda.
you.
This is Ronan from San Francisco. Ronan Bose.
Hello, Ananda.
Hey, Ananda.
Shopunda, hello. This is Namaskar, Shudev from San Francisco.
Hello, Shudev.
Hey, Shudev.
আমি দেবতোষ from Washington DC.
Hello, Devatosh.
Namaskar, Shapunda. This is Meenakshi from Bangalore, and I have seen you in person when you visited Bangalore. There was a program on CAA under Arvind Limbavali constituency. So I visited that program, and I visited with a large group here, and I'm a big fan of you. I follow you in Twitter. And from this meeting, I want to know like how I can support you from being in Bangalore, especially for West Bengal.
Okay.
Hello, Shapunda. This is Paricha from Mumbai.
Hello. Hello.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Hello, Shapunda. Sudeep Mujumdar from San Francisco.
Hello, Sudeep.
আপনার লেকচার বহুদিন থেকে আমি
বলুন।
This is Manik Ghoshal from Manchester. আমাদের একজন friend আছে কাঞ্চন গুপ্তা. He was my classmate.
আচ্ছা।
He worked under you.
Yes.
Hello, Swapanda. Santosh Kulkarni from Bangalore.
Hello, Santosh.
Shopanda, as you can see.
Hello, Swapanda. I am Sanjay from Singapore.
Hello, Sanjay.
It's absolutely a Mahakumbh, I must say. Amazing to see the passion. The folks.
So tell me, you want me to speak for how long? What is the structure?
We will never be tired with you. It's up to you.
No. But tell me, how you structured the meeting.
How we structure, Shopanda, like we'll first, let the folks joining in, we'll give 2-3 more minutes, and then our Dr. Japra ji, who is the founder of A4H, who's, Dr. Japra is also joining Dr. Ramesh Japra. And then we'll kind of little introduction, and Dr. Saab will welcome you. And then we'll ask you a question, a generic question to answer. And after, kind of a monologue from your side, and then we'll open up and people will start asking a question.
Okay, lovely. And I see that there's a sort of mixed linguistic profile of the audience. So I'll speak in English. Or
Yeah, that would be nice. Sometime you can add some of your, your way of adding some Bengali lines also. That would
Bengali talka. Sometimes Bengali talka is needed.
So,
okay.
Dr. Saab, are you there? Dr. Saab, you might have to just unmute. So, Shopanda just wanted to add, as you can see, Sandeep.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद स्वपन जी. Welcome.
Namaskar. Dhanyawad.
Perfect. So, what I'll do now, as Dr. Saab has also come, let me just mute a little bit and then I'll get us going. So I have just muted, whenever you would like to speak. So we will structure it this way that Dr. Saab and Shopanda, if you please unmute yourself, you can do that. And Shondipda, you too. And then we will have a little bit of introduction. And then Shopanda will have his, kind of more of a Bichar Manthan where he's provided Bodhik. And then we'll open up the bridge, you raise your hands and I will ask question. But please unmute yourself, whoever not speaking. Sorry, please mute yourself. I can see some of you guys are still not muted. Please do it. So welcome everyone, and welcome especially to Sh.Swapan Dasgupta, one of our very own, and we are so proud about, one second, I'm just starting the recording too. So welcome everyone to this amazing session hosted by American for Hindus. And as you know, we are all, believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, believe in everyone's unity. We stand against racism and we stand against having everyone as our brother and sister. And with that centrist ideology, we believe how we can help the two great democracies, US and India, more. And as part of it, we are hosting today Sh.Swapan Dasgupta ji, a Padma Bhushan, and an really eminent journalist who has written many books. And we have grown up reading his articles in Outlook, the Telegraph, the Statesman, and many other places. Sh.Swapan is a Rajyasabha MP too, one of the best orator of his time. And it's a privilege for this entire crowd to listen from Sh.Swapan. So I will take a pause. I will ask everyone else to get muted. And let's Dr. Japraji, Dr. Ramesh Japraji, our founder, and an eminent, one of the most eminent cardiologists from North America, to introduce and welcome Sh.Swapan to this platform. Dr. Sir.
Once again, namaskar, Swapan ji, bahut dhanyawad for joining us. Coming all the way. It's a privilege, and on behalf of all the members, the trustees of Americans for Hindus, we would like to welcome you. Be part of us. It's very nice of you that you are agreed to interact with us. We are looking forward to this interaction. As Judaji ji said, that Americans for Hindus, all the Americans, whether they're Hindus, pro-Hindus, and like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is a family. We're not taking Hindu as a religion, but everybody who believes in our civilization, our traditions, our ideology, our values, our philosophy, all those people are included. And we are trying to educate our politicians here, right from President Trump onwards. We are trying to educate them.
Yes, sorry, doctor.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's okay. So we are trying to educate them so that they can all learn about us, about our Hinduism, so what we are. And India being the largest democracy in the world, and of course, America, which has been one of the strongest and one of the oldest democracies. I think post-COVID, we are looking forward to this great relationship. I think once President Trump gets re-elected and we get the Republican Congress, I tell you, this is going to be a great relationship. The new world order is coming up and we are looking forward to it. And we would like to get your views on this. How is India ready for this? Has Modi ji has been ready for this now with his team, and what the strategy you folks are building and thinking about, so that we can also participate in that. Sitting here as Americans, our Matribhumi is India, and we want to make sure that this relationship comes at the top in the post-COVID order. So, ek baar phir bahut dhanyawad, and on behalf of Americans for Hindus, all the members who are here today, thank you very much for joining us and participating in this great interaction.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. I just wanted to add, we have Shishir Bajoria ji, who is also one of our very own from the city of Calcutta, and who also takes care of the Videsh Vivag along with Vijay Chauthavale ji. He's one of the key person to make this happen. I know Shishita from probably last 10-12 years now, and he's one of our biggest supporter to see how strategically we bring the diaspora support to make things happen, in Bharat. And obviously Bengal in 2021 coming in, it's a humongous amount of interest among the diaspora community to bring the changes, and for at least forever make it happen, that to make Bangla Ma to get back its lost glory. And we also have Shondeep Nadda joining us. Shondeep Da, we all know, is an very eminent lyricist who has given the music and the words to the songs like Sun Raha Hai Na Tu, Ro Raha Hu Main. And Sandeep Da, when he heard that Sh.Swapan is joining, he has joined this program just to give his also his to show his support too. So I will take 30 seconds from Sandeep Da, if you please unmute, and in your own andaz aap ek bar agar Sh.Swapan ko welcome karte ho, and then we'll start with
Sh.Swapan da, बहुत स्वागत. আমি বাংলাতেও বলবো, হিন্দিতেও বলবো, আর ইংরেজি में भी बात करा. I'll talk in all three languages. मैं भी एक जर्नलिस्ट रहा हूं, तो सपन दा हमारे लिए स्टॉलवर्ड है, सपन दा हमारे लिए प्रेरणा है। और सपन दा का भी कुछ दिनों पहले एक लाइव सेशन हो रहा था, बंगाल की जो महिला मोर्चा की अध्यक्ष हैं अग्निशिखा जी, वो कर रही थी, तो आई वाज इन दैट, तो आई सॉ द होल एंटायर conversation, but lots of questions were not taken up there, तो जो आज हम लोग डिस्कस करेंगे, that's why I was so excited। सपन दा बहुत बहुत स्वागत, और हमारी तरफ से बहुत बहुत आपको, आप भी जो है हमारे लिए एक आइकॉन है, और आज हम लोग सब एनरिच होंगे कि 2021 में हम कैसे बंगाल को इन पंजों से मुक्त करा, और रियल डेमोक्रेसी वहां पर जो आनी चाहिए उसका हम लोग वेट कर रहे हैं। बंगालीज बंगाल के बाहर इतना एक्सेल कर रहे हैं, और बंगाल में वो बंगालीज जो पूरे दुनिया को राह दिखाती थी, जो बंगाल जिसने विवेकानंद, रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर जैसे बड़े बड़े स्टॉलवर्ड दिए हैं, आज उस बंगाल की हालत इतनी खराब है कि मेरे माता पिता वहां रहते, मैं बंगाल में जाता हूँ तो मुझे बड़ा अजीब सा लगता है। तो आज उन सब विषयों पे डिस्कशन होगा आपके मार्गदर्शन में, और मैं अगेन आई विल थैंक टू डॉक्टर रमेश जाबरा और जुधा जी, जिन्होंने इतना सुंदर आयोजन किया, और सारे मित्रों का पूरे विश्व से सबका स्वागत है, सबको नमस्कार। और हम लोग शुरू करते हैं आज ये सेशन इसी नोट पे, और आई एम लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू लॉट ऑफ कंस्ट्रक्टिव डिस्कशन, जिसमें हम लोग बहुत अच्छा कुछ 2021 के लिए मैसेज लेंगे, कैसे हमें सबको अपना अपना कंट्रीब्यूशन करना है।
संदीप दा, एक दो लाइन आपके अंदाज में, कोई कविता का, कोई गाने का, एंड देन विल स्टार्ट विद स्वपन दा।
बस एक नई मशाल जलानी है, और सपन दा तो ये इसी अभी मैं ये करता हूँ, मैं बीच में जब मैं आऊंगा उस वक्त मैं कुछ मौजू के साथ, यानी डिस्कशन को मैं मजेदार कर दूंगा, तो उस वक्त कुछ करेंगे हम लोग, बिल्कुल।
Perfect, awesome. So let us get started, guys. Tighten your seat belt. So Swapanda, so as you can see, there's an amazing interest from the diaspora. One of the main thing that they all wanted to understand, that we feel very sad to see the situation of Bengal. We have seen how it happened during the COVID, how it happened, the post-Amphan, and our people, our own people, the way they get affected and all that. One question that always comes, Swapanda, that and one way we see this is happening in Bengal, another way we're seeing with Modi ji's leadership, how Bharat Ma is going forward, the new Bharat. How can we bring the change in Bengal, Swapanda? How can we see the BJP government, the government under the Modi ji's leadership, we can bring in Bengal too. We can take Bengal out of this shackle and bring the lost glory. So if you've been with BJP for some time, from all your experience, if you can address the diaspora, the hope, the optimism, the chances, and what this diaspora can do. Thank you, Swapanda.
Dhanyawad Judajit, Dhanyawad Dr. Ramesh Chapra ji, Sandeep ji, and all of you some of who stayed up rather late in the evening to be with us. And in any case, it's a weekend for most of you, and weekends, as I know in the West at least, is somewhat sacrosanct. So thank you very much. It's really a privilege for me to address so many people with so diverse interests, but all of whom have a common interest of seeing the good of India coming about. Now, let's get to the main subject, which is the question of Bengal. Now, I detect from the audience that there is a large number, perhaps a disproportionate number of people who are Bengalis. So Bengal doesn't really need introduction to them. But for those of us who are there from some other communities, who are there from some other parts of India, or whose awareness of Bengal over the years has diminished somewhat, let me say something very cruel, which is that when we talk about Bengal, I think we all recognize that the glory seems to be more in the past than in the future. And I think that is the real tragedy which we've come to accept. In Bengal, when we talk, I have often coined a new word for it, which is called declinology. Because we are always talking about decline in some sphere or the other. Okay, there are moments of pride, but again, that same question of decline once again comes in. And this has been, in my mind, a 50-year story. It's not something which happened overnight. It's not something which came about just because Mamata Banerjee is in power. It's something which is far greater. it's far deeper, and it's been eating into the vitals of the society there. Sometimes when we're in Kolkata, we often find that I often ask myself the question, where are the young people? If you go to a housing colony, a middle class housing colony, and you'll find that it's just full of old people, people who've retired, people whose best years are over. The younger people, by and large, the ones with energy, the ones with talent, a very large number of them have bought one-way tickets to somewhere or the other. A substantial portion are settled in North America, some are in Europe, some are somewhere else in the world. But then the other day I went to Bangalore and I was told there are 12 lakh Bengalis there. 12 lakh. I mean, that's a substantial. It's 1.2 million people who are Bengalis who live in Bangalore and occupying right from the top, the very top of the corporate pile to the position of lowly chowkidars. I mean, the whole gamut is covered by that. They are there in Mumbai. There's a big community in Delhi. Almost every single growth center of India and the world are Bengali. These days, when they were talking about migrant workers returning, and that's a big crisis, as you know, in various parts of India, people trying. The estimated number from Bengal, all of whom haven't returned, is said to be anything between 60 to 80 lakhs. Now, we don't know the exact number. So that's the scale of the exodus. Almost every family in Bengal has a story about one member of their family or the other who are now staying out of Bengal. Soon, maybe we'll become like the Irish when there are more Bengalis outside Bengal than there are in Bengal. Might come to a position like that. Now, this question of the decline, which is the main theme. Now, what are some of the symptoms of this? And I think the most important facet of this decline is the fact that today Bengal has become an extremely violent society. It is probably the most violent society without an insurgency. I mean, the number of murders, political murders in particular, which happen, and the extent of political violence which takes place in Bengal has not been seen anywhere else in the country, perhaps with the solitary exception of maybe Kashmir. So that's the level at which you have an election, 100 people die. Almost everywhere in India, booth capturing has become a story of the past. There are bitterly fought elections, but you don't hear stories of booth capturing. One booth out of, in about every 60th constituency, you might get one booth which might call for a repoll because there was some violence. But in Bengal, it's so recurrent. It's endemic that to talk about a peaceful election in West Bengal is an oxymoron in a lot of ways. The second issue, which is very troublesome, which doesn't come up very strongly, but which is there very much, especially in the countryside and in the small place, is the extent of petty corruption. And I'm here, I'm talking about petty corruption, because the scale of corruption is not of the sort of Vijay Mallya scale. It's not of the Nirav Modi scale we are talking about. What we are talking about is that how literally people's pockets are picked for 2,000 rupees, for 5,000 rupees, where every little thing involves a cut, a 10%. And it's not even like sometimes in Tamil Nadu, we hear that, there is a great deal of corruption there, which I sometimes call service charge in Tamil Nadu. But in Bengal, it's not even a service charge. It's almost like an entitlement. Here they call it cut money. It's that at every point, even when you try to give direct beneficiary transfer into the banks, someone is there to cream off. From 2000, they will say, no, you must give us 500 rupees. And it's at that level which it's working now. So it's not merely the quantum of corruption, it is the intensity and penetration of the corruption practices. And that almost big decisions are taken for the sake of these little corrupting. So as it is, your cake has become smaller, but within that cake, an increasingly large slice is being taken up by corruption. So that is something which is completely new. So those of us who say, yes, some people would say, yes, the cost of living in Bengal is still very reasonable, etc. So when you can imagine a low-cost economy, not a high-cost economy, a low-cost economy marked by violence, marked by corruption. And the third factor which I'm talking about is this a systematic decline of institutions. We know about, now the question is, we have about, if assuming that at least 50% of the migrant workers who are earning their livelihood in different parts of the India choose to come back to Bengal, even temporarily, even for a year or 2 years because of various issues. Where are the opportunities to take care of them? It's just not there. So you're going to reach a certain boiling point. On top of that, what do we see? A complete collapse of the public health system. A complete collapse and an over-politicization of the education system. The education system, for which Bengal was very, very proud of at one time. It gave the state a certain comparative historic advantage, which is why there were so many Bengalis which are scattered all over the place. That education system has broken down considerably. The other day I went to Bhubaneswar. Now, Bhubaneswar at one time used to be thought of as a provincial backwater. Now, we Bengalis sometimes used to think, Odisha, what can Odisha do? Bhubaneswar has emerged as a new education hub. And I'm very pleased, very, very proud to see that happening. There was a very functioning law college there, privately owned law college, which was there. And what struck me as a great deal of, with great surprise, was that while you certainly had students from Odisha, you had students from Jharkhand, you had students from Chhattisgarh, but you had a really huge chunk of students who were from West Bengal. So those who could just get themselves out of the state. The other day I had a delegation of research students doing their PhDs come to me and say that, look, we have no longer access to becoming assistant professors, lecturers, whatever in the colleges of West Bengal, because that is taken up by what is called guest lecturers who don't have to meet any criterion and who've subsequently been regularized. Now, those who have been to Calcutta or adjoining areas have come across this phenomena called what is called the civic police. You have the police and then you have the civic, a new sort of institution. Now here you're getting the institution called almost something akin to what might be called civic teachers. So it's no longer a question of teaching. It's a question of occupying jobs and getting a salary. And that breakdown of the education system, which comes about by a system of over-politicization which began with the left and has continued with this. What in fact the Trinamool Congress has done is that they've picked up the worst features of the left. To the credit of the left were control freaks, but they weren't all that corrupt. Now here you have that same degree of control. Add to that corruption. And you get this sort of situation that everything in the state has become an instrument, a platform of politics. This gross over-politicization of every arena, from cinema to industry, that has become agency of politics. It's horrific, come to think of it. We heard stories about this happening in certain parts of the erstwhile Soviet Union. But in India, which is a democratic country, where we are far more relaxed about these things, it's not there. The other day, the Amphan cyclone hit the city. It's Kolkata, and it hit the 224 Parganas. The devastation in 24 Parganas, particularly in the parts of what is the old Sundarban, the Sundarbans area, is horrific. It hasn't got that much of publicity, but it's quite thick because those are low-lying areas, and many of the bunds got devastated, and you had salt water coming into the old fisheries, which has resulted in the decimation of the fishery ponds. And the extent of the devastation is quite profound. Now, in this sort of a situation, you would have expected that anybody who can give help, relief for the moment, would be welcome. But no, that's not the case. You have to be a member of the Trinamool Congress to be given the help, to be allowed to go there, to be allowed to give it. And then on top of that, there is the creaming off of the relief material. So you can see the pettiness of the political thing and the corruption and the breakdown of the institutions, all working simultaneously to create a horrific situation, all presided over by a lady who acts on her whims and fancies. Now, the extent to which Mamata Banerjee has become a joke, hardly. She provides unlimited quantity of entertainment to various people. But if it was just plain fun, it would have been understandable. That would have been, we could have all had a great laugh over it. I mean, there are politicians who are there who give unlimited amount of free entertainment for people. But if that fun, coupled with this form of decline, it becomes a very dangerous situation. So I come to the question of how do we take Bengal out of this cesspit into which it has fallen. I must tell you that the BJP in Bengal is a relatively new organization. Nationally, it may have been, it existed from 1980, but in Bengal, it is a relatively new party. And it has some of the advantages of being a relatively new party, but it also suffers from a lot of the disadvantages of being a new party. In terms of the type of people which it's been able to get, etc. In terms of the type of confidence it's been able to get. So the big BJP is only one aspect, that it's a new party which has come to the fore in Bengal, partly because of the euphoria that has been, the confidence that has been generated by people like Narendra Modi ji. So it's ridden on the backs of the Prime Minister and have climbed to the top in Bengal and has won 18 seats. And therefore, to win a similar sort of mandate in an assembly election where the issues are very local, when people know that Modi ji is not going to become our chief minister, is a far greater monumental challenge in that sense. So you have to have local faces, you have to have local talent, and most important, you have to have an agenda which is geared towards the local requirements. It's not enough to say sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka viswas. That would be like a mantra. That means you can say, if someone says our foreign policy is based on the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it sounds very nice, but then you've got to get into a little more specifics. You tell Pakistan our policy is based on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, then you'll get a big laugh from them. So it's got to be fleshed out at every particular juncture. Now, question of industry comes in. West Bengal is one of the very few states in the whole of the Indian Union which has not only suffered decline, it has actually suffered from deindustrialization. It is a classic example of what in the United States you call the Rust Belt. You get out of Howrah station if you come to Calcutta by train, and what do you see around you? Shells of factories. Just go a few miles, you go to a place called Hinmotor. Once upon a time, it was the largest automobile factory in Asia, which churned out the ubiquitous Ambassador car. Next to that, you find jute mills, the engineering factories. Once upon a time, great names. Byrne and Company, Jessops, names which were legendary, household names at one time, all of India, which probably did. What are they now? Rusting sheds, closed factories with a probably limp flag fluttering about. Workers who long ago gave up any hopes of getting any jobs back there. Dunlop factory, closed. An industrial wasteland which exists now all over that place. And on top of that, when industry attempt to come, then you have agitations, like when you had with the nano factory in Singur, which led to the Tatas actually packing up their enterprise and moving elsewhere to Gujarat. The damage that particular move of the Tatas did to any new confidence in getting industrial in industries in Bengal is incalculable. That entire confidence became shaken, and it became, oh, well, you can't do anything in Bengal. Employ a Bengali, but send him out of Bengal. That's the joke which goes around. They are very good to work, but send them out of Bengal. That stereotype has been created. So on top of that, so when you have this situation of decline at every stage, when you have very fertile agricultural land, but agricultural land on which there are just too many people subsisting. Today, the average landholding is so tiny that it's not possible for even the people who are farming there to eke out a living there. They need other things. So you have this form of crisis upon crisis upon crisis at different stages on Bengal. So to my mind, the first and most important thing which has to be done in Bengal is the creation of an environment, a wholesome environment whereby at least there is peace. That's very, very important. The first important thing is restoration of peace. Number two, the end of crackdown, a zero tolerance policy which has to happen on corruption. I often tell people in the BJP in West Bengal that if you end up becoming carbon copies of the Trinamool Congress, then Bengal will never forgive you. You cannot. You've got to have an integrity quotient which is much, much superior. You have to have that. Yes, and third, what you need the complete and total depoliticization of certain institutions. And I single out two of them for particular reference. Now, this might sound a bit radical. And I kept on saying this, that what is the biggest problem that Bengal has faced? It's that it has had too much of politics. Politics has permeated every pore of your body. And politics of the most petty kind. That depoliticization of education, the depoliticization of the health sector, these are important. It's only when you begin to create that environment that you can start thinking about other things, that you can think about West Bengal as a hub for medical tourism, West Bengal in terms of exploiting its tourist potential, West Bengal as an education hub. After all, the talent of the entire country is somewhere else. It's quite a lot of the talent of the entire country has come from West Bengal. To bring it back, you have to create that environment. Is it worth their while for people to come back? And even if people want to come back, do their children want to come back? One of the biggest problems which we've seen is that the children say, no, this is not something we need to. So the issue really has to become this way, that create the environment, create the atmosphere, give people a measure of confidence, and then you start addressing these problems one by one. The prescriptions of all these have been choked out. It doesn't require any rocket scientist, nor does it require too many economists. I mean, one of the tragedies of Bengal is there is a inverse relationship with the number of economists we produce and the type of economy we have generated. It's a complete inverse relationship which we have. This does not require all that. What basically requires is the same thing. We have this problem of a very contrived battle which has been taking place all along between the center and the state. Modi ji wants to set up Ayushman Bharat, which gives up 5 lakhs of basic health insurance for everybody, especially for people who are on the bottom end of the income scale. No. Mamta Devi says, no, we can't take that. He gives 3,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees to every marginal farmer. No, we can't touch that. At the same time, you go around and create an entire narrative based on the discrimination of the state. One of the big things I found when being in Delhi and going to each of these ministries and saying, what are you doing for Bengal? What are you doing for Bengal? Why don't you give this to Bengal, that thing? And you found one thing. And they have a common answer most of the time. He says, they don't even reply to our letters. What are you going to give them? So this battle, this absolutely contrived battle which has been created between the center and the state, that has to get rid of. We are a federal structure. India needs the states needs the center. India cannot do without Bengal. Bengal cannot do without India, the rest of India. This is a given. That has been our tradition. That right from the time when the freedom struggle, when Bengal led the way, when the basic ideas of freedom, nationalism, as we know it today, originated from Bengal. And that was always at the mind, that you have a very strong regional identity. No one is going to take away my regional identity. I'm very confident with it. It's not being threatened in any way. Why do Bengali directors make a mark in Bollywood? They do all the time. They had a very special role there. They're not being discriminated against. the discrimination is a purely political agenda. And that is why today we need to actually break down many of these cobwebs. These cobwebs have been allowed to grow and actually blur our vision over the days. And these cobwebs have to be taken. There are people who want to invest in West Bengal. They're the first thing question, oh, but there is a problem of land. There is not a problem of land. There is a problem of political will to deal with the land. There is the entire, I did describe to you the other side of the river Hooghly, which is a great industrial wasteland. Those closed industries, we should have, and normally I'm a bit wary about too much state intervention, but here I'm saying we need legislation to actually ensure that within a time, if industry is not restored in that particular, it gets taken over and reused. It's a national asset. It's a national asset which was given for a song to these industrialists. And if others are willing to invest in it, and then let us use that. If the Dunlop factory cannot be used to make tires anymore because of their own shortcomings, let it be used for something else. Because that land is an asset, and we cannot allow that land to be squandered away. These are some of the issues which we need to, and it's the political will which needs to be. And that political will only come about if you show that there is an environment for it, when you have the determination for it, and when you're working at it with a great deal of transparency and commitment. Transparency has been achieved. Today, one of the biggest achievements of the Modi government is that they brought corruption down exponentially. Why? Because they showed political will, and on top of that, they used technology. They managed to blend the two. Again, this is not rocket science. Today, technology is one of the biggest assets, and the Indian ability to use technology innovatively. Maybe we should do more. I think one of our problems is we are too low down on the value chain. We should be trying to get up the value chain far more. But there is no doubt about it that the Indian use of technology in governance has been one of the striking models of which can actually help eliminate corruption substantially. It may not eliminate it totally, but it will eliminate at least governmental level corruption quite a lot. And the extent to which this has been brought down is good. In the coming days, we face a huge challenge. Post-COVID, when an element of normalcy is brought back, we have to think about how we can make India grow in the face of an uncertain world. And that calls for every part of India to pull its weight together, to pull at the same time. You can't afford to be a laggard anymore. You can't afford to be what is called, what Henry Kissinger once used to say about Bangladesh, it will become an international basket case. We don't want to become a national basket case. Bengal has depended so far, has become from being the second most important state at the time of independence to becoming somewhere 13th or 14th in the national scale. We've become a money order economy. That means people earn their money somewhere else and send it there, and through remittances, we earn it. We are not generating enough. We are not generating enough because we are not having that climate. We don't have that environment which is conducive to the production of wealth. And if the production of wealth is not there, the question of redistribution becomes all skewed. And this, in a nutshell, is really the tragedy of Bengal today, which it faces. So this, to my mind, is more than just an ordinary electoral battle. It's a battle which involves trying to change a mindset. It involves trying to reshape dogmas which have actually hindered and crippled Bengal for the past 50 years. It calls for a new way of thinking. It calls for Bengalis and anybody living in Bengal to actually say, look, we've suffered enough decline. It's time we regrew. We grew again. So if we think about talking about Sonar Bangla, it's not merely a song. To try and make it a reality, we've got to make some very, very hard decisions, which more than it involves someone else, it involves ourselves. And I think I'll leave it at that. And I think if you have any questions, thank you very much once again for giving this great opportunity to explain some of the complexities, some of the challenges, and some of the inevitable disappointments which may also happen in the process. But I believe it's a very exciting time politically to be in Bengal, and I hope that excitement proves infectious. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shopunda. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, the different terms and the way you have sliced and diced that entire problem, and that's the reason probably that so many people from all across the globe cut across different linguistic group. And the problem of Bengal is no more a problem of only one state or only one linguistic group. It's a problem of Mother India. As you said, that this challenging time, no one can be laggard. Everybody has to pull their shocks up to make it happen. And that's the reason probably like when Dr. Saab also from as a founder of American for Hindus, who try to make it happen in US to bring the to build that lobby, build that the support system for India or for the betterment of United States of America. Think so much about that the betterness of India cannot happen only with one way. If one part of it is remain laggard, that the overall growth gets so much hindered. And that's the reason we having these sessions like NRIs for Bengal, and we're bringing the great people. We had Pradeep Joshiji, we had Kailash ji, we have Dilip Da, we have you, and everybody joining in. Everybody wants to hear the story. Everybody wants to see the solution. So as a part of the question, I mean, I would like Joydeep, who is a Silicon Valley technologist and it's originally from Shiliguri. If you please unmute and ask your question to Shopunda.
Thanks, Jitajit. Namaskar, Shopunda. I'm from San Francisco Bay Area, and it was a very pleasure meeting you and listening to you. I've been following you for a long time. Like I read your article. I used to see your debate. So when you joined BJP, I was very happy. so thank you. My question is not very related to Bengal, but in general, like overall, if you see the BJP supporters worldwide, we are very strong in the social media platform, right? So overall, last 6 years, we are very happy with what Modi ji has done. But lately, what I'm seeing, the area of concern is with two departments, primarily the HRD and the law, the ministry. I mean, if you see a lot can be done, I think the angst is that we are not seeing that much has been done in the HRD area and even in the law ministry area. Like HRD, I think you already touched upon. The kids are still reading the history books, which we read, right? I mean, glorifying our invaders. Even for Bengal, a lot can be done. We need to know. We need to tell our next generation what happened to their ancestor in East Bengal, or Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's contribution to Bengal. Even in the law ministry, we are seeing not much is done. Like anti-conversion is still, conversion is still going on. So where is the law for stopping the conversion or regulating the social media platform? A lot of right-wing handlers are, we see that biased. So a lot can be done. I know Rishiji is also here. His account was blocked a couple of times. So if you have any insight in these two areas, Shopunda, if you can talk, or at least push our views to the central ministry that a lot can be done, and I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Joydeep. I mean, that certainly you have touched upon two areas. Particularly, I hadn't touched upon that aspect. Now, this is a larger part of an intellectual war which is going on in India. It's not merely a question of a ministry. It's far more important than that. You, for instance, are familiar with the type of hostility greets the Modi government from certain newspapers in the United States. The New York Times is a fascinating case of overinterpretation, of people who actually try to overinterpret everything and find a negative facet to India, even when sometimes when it doesn't exist. And they have their counterparts in India as well. And their idea is they want to disprove for the BJP, committed BJP person, the victory of Modi ji was not merely a change in Prime Minister. It also necessitated a change in the direction in which India must move. The measure of national self-confidence, which we must acquire, not only in the economic sphere, but in a way of thinking. And where you talk about history, where you talk about certain of the issues of law, these are very important. Now, I would say one of the problems is that for a long time, this form of intellectual work, which would be the first step in rectifying some of the distortions in the history, has not happened. There are reasons for it. For about 30, 40, 50 years, you had a leftist cabal which dominated the universities. They still dominate, incidentally. The worst of those leftists are in fact produced from universities in North America these days. In fact, North America has done more to the promotion of leftist thought in India than anything else.
Very true.
This gradually, for me, it's very important to say, and I would say that it is very important to build the intellectual reserves of this movement. You must have that rigor. You can't just say Aurangzeb was a bad king. You must have that ability, like Sir Jadunath Sarkar did, of being able to actually read those texts and actually throw those texts and say, look, this is what it is. Why has Sanskrit, to just give one example, which we call the entire Indology stream of learning, declined in India? Why has it now that the main centers of Indology have shifted to places like Chicago? It's our fault. We have to build up these reserves. We have to build up these institutions. And because we haven't built up these institutions, because we haven't built up these reservoirs of learning, that we find ourselves blundering in HRD. We find ourselves blundering in some other way. We are unsure. We lack that self-confidence sometimes to be able to do it. Because we get this constant barrage from the leftists. They dominate the centers, they dominate the universities, they dominate academia, they dominate publishing, and the most important, they dominate their influence in the global media is total. So these are the challenges. And I'm glad that if you keep reminding the government, reminding that this is an incomplete agenda. This is work in progress. This work has not been attended. So I would say I'm very glad you do that. Keep doing it. Because there are a lot of people who will say, "Arey, tum ab phir ye sab baat leke aa rahe ho, aajkal economy ki baat hai." That's true. It is the economy, no doubt. That's very important. But simultaneously, the development of the Indian cultural personality cannot be allowed to take a secondary role. And in Bengal, we see this. The way Bengal is headed, it will become a cultural extension of Bangladesh. I don't want to elaborate on it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And you being from North Bengal will understand it even better.
Yes.
So these are the challenges.
Perfect.
Thank you
so much, Shapunda. I mean, I would like Dr. Japra ji, Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab is from Punjab. He's he has done his medical from AIMS and then amazingly, uniting the entire Indian diaspora in North America. But Dr. Saab is very interesting. When I was talking to him about East Bengal, Mohun Bagan, you won't believe from the journal Singh to Babu Manis of the world, he knows about that. So he's very passionate about our state and knows about those intricacies. Dr. Saab, you are hearing some of this very, very interesting insight from Shapunda about state, and we always keep discussing about how we can bring our diaspora, how we can help our motherland, how we can help our different states. And I know how Bengal close to your heart. So what question, Dr. Saab, you have for Shapunda?
Well, first of all, thank you, Swapanji. Sorry to hear about this declinology which you have mentioned. Our heart bleeds, to hear that out. But with the intellectuals like you, who are still working on, and of course our Prime Minister Modi ji, who has been all over the world, and especially in the United States of America, he's been many, many times. I met him every time he's come here. We are very proud of him, what he's been able to become an international statesman, at the same time develop this relationship with President Trump, whom we are trying very, very hard. That's why we have this Americans for Hindus, to get him back in the elections so that this relationship can go further. And of course, the post-COVID era where India and United States can be the superpowers instead of China and many of the others who are trying to do the same. So my question to you would be, on this path of inclinology, which India, I think we believe as Indians sitting outside here in America, is going to be the case. How much ready India is, how much ready Modi ji and yourself and the whole team is to take upon this opportunity to rise above, make us even prouder than what we are. And of course, we're going to keep playing our role, many things which you folks cannot do back in India. We sitting here in America with the free speech, we can do it. We can take upon these media. We are working very hard with our own media team. We are working very, very hard to go ahead and talk about our dharma, our ideology, our philosophies, and our civilization in a much bigger way, and trying to promote it and try to educate all the politicians here. And that has been our goal. And by doing that, I think we're going to make India even a lot better place in the world, the position in the world itself, which is going to make us prouder. Because we always believe if India looks good, we look good. So I would like to ask you the question, how ready are we? Are we ready to take upon this opportunity?
Yeah, I think that's a very fascinating question, because I think the type of challenge which we face in India in this sort of post-COVID world, we don't really know exactly how long, when it's will become a post-COVID world, because we are still sort of firefighting our way. We are still engaged in the process of fighting this pandemic itself. Now, the challenge which seems to me is paramount is, how do we leverage the undeniable importance which we have acquired in the whole world? And there is no doubt about it. Today, when President Trump says India must be included in the G10, it must be a formal thing. There's no question of having a G7 and some other invited members. Get Australia, get South Korea, and get India above all to come. That's the other important place. How do we balance this with the necessity of actually developing a degree of self-sufficiency? And I'm not saying, self-reliance, which doesn't make us an isolationist place. Because while we need to strengthen our capacities, we don't want to be in a situation. I'll give you a small example of this. when the COVID thing broke, we found that the production of those whatever they call it, N95 face masks or whatever, the little more sophisticated face masks. Those face masks had, all of them required a certain input which could only come from China. When it came to the PPE equipment, we found that it was again. So how do we first create a situation where at least for everything we are not dependent on a power which has the potential to blackmail us, to blackmail the world, and to flex its muscles? We require that capacity. So we have to develop that capacity first. And we develop that capacity while at the same time entering into strategic engagement with the rest of the world, with countries like the United States, certain European countries, countries like Australia, Japan, South Korea, which too have their own suspicion of, they saying, we don't want China to be the thing. Yeah, I'm not saying that an entire foreign policy should be built on the basis of being an anti-China. But it's a foreign policy which basically takes into account that we must develop our own capacities. And I think the short-term approach has to be that we develop our own capacities. A lot of people laughed when we decided, why are we having a moon mission? It didn't succeed. But the mere fact that we have a moon mission has a certain scientific and technological spin-off, which enables us to leverage our position. And it's that, so foreign policy and economic policy must be necessarily tied together. And I mentioned some time ago that India has become, we have a certain role in the IT industry. Unfortunately, our place in the value chain of that IT industry is not adequate. We need to move higher up the value chain, much more up the value chain. In the question of medical thing, which you know much better, we have the doctors. Now we need to invest in medical technology. We need to get our pharmaceutical industry far more and far more aggressive. I'm very glad that our pharmaceutical industry poses enough of a challenge for other countries to try and modify their laws to keep our pharmaceutical industries out. It's actually a backhanded compliment. So the work of strengthening ourselves inwards and reaching outwards is both simultaneous. Sometimes people mistake it by saying, oh, we are just retreating inwards. We are not retreating inwards. We are just reaching out strategically so that we can strengthen ourselves, develop our own capacities, and that really is the priority at the moment. And once, if we can do that in a relatively short span of time, I think this COVID thing gives us a double challenge. I mean, it requires a huge amount of flexibility, adjustment, nimble, movements here and there to be able to get over it. Because there is a human dimension to it also. There is a human cost of people being dislocated, people suffering, etc. And we have to manage that also. So I think, again, as I said, this is something which in the coming days we are going to hear a lot about. And I think, but for the moment, I think we are also terribly preoccupied with how to manage this immediate situation, which, I mean, I don't think sometimes we are as, I mean, one thing India demonstrated is we value human life. Everyone used to say Indian human lives don't matter. I think we demonstrated more than anything else, we value our human lives too. That every life matters. That's why our death toll, at least, has been far more than what has happened in, say, the United States or Germany or Sweden, incomparable death toll. The United States is a scandal in many respects.
Thank you, Shwapanda. Great answer to Dr. Saab's question. Next question will be from Doipayan Deb, who is another technologist based out of Valley and originally from Shilchor, a Sylheti guy, very passionate about Dharma and Bengal and overall growth of India. So Doipayan, if you please, share your question for Shwapanda.
Namaskar, Swapanda.
Namaskar.
So my question is basically a continuation to what earlier Jaideep ji said. So I mean, overall, we are very happy with what Modi ji is doing. Like few areas of another area of concern is the IT department, basically the information technology. I mean, we are running the Silicon Valley here. Like, I mean, there are so many Indians doing so many great jobs. One thing we have seen mostly after Pulwama, right? ISI has used social media much better than us. I think we are giving that feedback many times to, and we don't much initiative from the IT department, IT ministry. They can just, we have a lot of people in India, like if you give some, you can employ them and use those as a bots or whatever to build that social media thing. But I mean, there is a lack of interest or something which is not seen from the IT ministry. We can work together. Like I know the Rishi ji is over here, who is doing a great job. I don't think government is doing anything for him, but I mean, something needs to be initiated from the ministry, right? We have the resource and the talent. So I want to give this as a feedback. If something you can take it to them and you can work on that. I mean, we have the resources basically. So
yeah, but I mean, there are two aspects to your question. One is which can be done with the ministry, and one which doesn't work with I mean, works outside the ministry. And I think you were talking about Rishi. These are people who work outside the department, who work outside ministries, and their role is far more. Now, as far as taking on the ISI at a more organized level, yes, that requires inputs from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, even Ministry of Defense, other things. So there are two aspects to it. But I think your point is well taken, and I think if the IT Ministry of Information Technology has shown relative disinterest, I think that should be corrected.
Thank you. We have, Subhuda, are you there? We have Subramaniam Varayur, who is one of the top guy from, from one of the leading IT company in India. And I believe he has a question for you, Shwapanda. Subhuda, are you there? Okay. So the next question then we have from Mrinmoyda, who is another guy who is his root there in Bengal, and he's from Dallas right now, settled down in Dallas. So Mrinmoyda, please go ahead with your question to Shwapanda.
Namaskar, Shwapanda.
Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Judaji and Jafraji. I am a OABGP member last 12 to 13 years. Also, now I'm one of the member of Americans for Hindus under the leadership of Dr. Jafraji. So it's really nice to talking with you. We have a greatest admire to you because we learned a lot from by reading to your journals, books while we were student. So my two small question: you started as a journalist to now as a BJP MP. How the journey you can just whether you were more okay with the journalist activities or now as a MP? And the second thing, as an eminent journalist from Bengal, what steps you can think about to bring more Bengali intellectuals, to our BJP platform, especially before the 2021 election? So that's the two question.
Well, thank you, Mrinmoy, for these questions. I mean, actually, to be honest, I started off more in academia than in journalism. I actually strayed quite accidentally into journalism, stayed there for some time, had a reasonably fulfilling innings, and then decided to do something else. And so it's life is a constant learning experience, and it's been that. And but one of the casualties of being in journalism for such a long time has been that I've also stayed out of Bengal for a very long time, although I've never given up Bengal. But it meant that being where the centers of information, when you're a journalist, you have to be where the center of information is. And the center of political information, at least, has always been Delhi. So, perforce, that's been the case. Now, the larger question of intellectuals in Bengal. The Bengal is always, for some reason or the other, Bengal has always prided itself as being a progressive bastion. They've always seen themselves as somewhat a cut which is different from the rest of the country in terms of their. And a large section of the intellectuals of Bengal have promoted this. The Bengal which produced Swami Vivekananda, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, and Aurobindo, was also those who today, for instance, how in an insidious sort of way, Swami Vivekananda has been reinterpreted. The Hinduness of Swami Vivekananda has been taken out, and he's become like one of those new age gurus which you find in your California. He's been made into almost that. The context in which he said it, the circumstances, and his larger message, which had a very specific Indian meaning, has been made there. That's one particular example. Secondly, the manner in which the most repressive regimes of the world, I'm talking about Stalin's Soviet Union or Mao's China, had an enormous appeal, almost a perverse sort of appeal amongst the Bengali intellectuals. Even now, they almost worship that. And to get out of that, I mean, the rest of the world may laugh, but those sort of ideas still remain very, very fixated within Bengal. So you have, as I said, this is a political battle, but there is a very large intellectual dimension to this, because in Bengal, ideas matter. That's a good thing about Bengal. Ideas matter. Sometimes bad ideas matter more, but that's another matter altogether. But ideas matter. So this is a battle which has to be fought not only at the political level, but also at the pure level of ideas to get thinking across. So we need people who are passionate, who are well-read, who have some vision, a modernist vision, whose modernist vision at the same time is rooted in the soil of Bengal, in our traditions, in our inheritance, which incidentally is all to be found within the Bengali lexicon. You don't even have to look outside. It's all there. I did a collection called Awakening Bharat Mata, which was published last year by Penguin. And I found that the inspiration for most of the ideas of Indian nationalism, about 60 to 70% of them came from Bengal. So it's all there. It's an archaeological task now. Resurrect, dig it out, bring it up to the fore. But do it with imagination, do it with passion, and do it with a degree of integrity. And that's what we require at this moment.
Thank you, Shapanda. Great answer. And
Juda, I have a question. Juda ji.
yeah. I'll just come to you. Absolutely, Debotosh. So great question, great answer, Shapanda. And as this is a very good point that you brought while writing this book, Bharat Mata. You could see that from Aurobindo Ghosh, from Shamiji, so many names you mentioned. We can completely. So that's why when we talk to many of our non-Bengali brothers in North America too, what we heard when we see their passion also about reclaiming the glory of Bengal, what they say that we oblige to Bengal, what Bengal has done for the independence movement. Many of us may not have a root there, but we really don't want to see this shape and form of Bengal. We were always we have idealized someone like Aravinda Ghosh or Swami Vivekananda or Yogananda ji or or ISKCON, let's say. So this is the passion. This is the point that a nice.
Exactly.
Yeah, Shobhaji. So from that, so that point, I would like the next question from Shobhaji. Why don't you share your question for Shapanda? And Shobhaji is one of our board member in American for Hindus. She's a doctor based out of Chicago, and as you can see, the great lotus flower in our background that shows the connect that we have. Shobhaji, please.
Thank you, Judajit, and very, very good day to you, Dasgupta ji. Such an honor, to be able to connect with you like this on Zoom, and also the august audience here. Thank you for the opportunity. And I think you hit the nail on the head by saying political and ideological connection. That's exactly what's needed, perhaps in Bengal as well, definitely in Tamil Nadu, Chennai, where I'm from, but more so in the United States of America. We were happy with our samosas, Bollywood, bindi outfits, intercontinental marriages happening, and the Hindu American population has got a rude shock, a rude awakening in the last year or so. And suddenly all the Democrats here, who traditionally we've always veered, I voted Democrat, by the way, last election. I'm now a complete Republican. There is a lot of anti-India narrative in media, anti-Hindu narrative. Somehow the name Hindutva is being completely manipulated and sold as the Nazi equivalent, the new age Nazi equivalent. So much so that in US universities, our Hindu American children are being harassed, and they are calling home to their parents saying that we're being projected as Nazis, as if we're very mean to non-Hindu minorities in India. But I really want to also bring attention that the ideology is the one that's kind of coloring all their decisions. One of the city councils in Seattle, where the resolution was passed against CAA, one of the Caucasians, who's American, white American gentleman, he said, yes, I read about this in The Economist. I read about this in that journal, and there it said that this is a very discriminatory policy by India. And that is very scary to us, because we need to bring that literary education, here, and make sure that this is not happening, that this is not coloring the middle class, the forward, the educated Americans about India. And for that, we really need your help, because as Debji knows, in the last several weeks, 2-3 weeks, people have really not slept well. We've all been battling in one way or the other to try to get St. Paul City Council to not vote against the CAA. And despite everything, they went ahead and voted. There is $160 million at work here against India for this. The minorities, for some reason, they're misplaced, and they have actually aligned with something called the Council of American Islamic Relationships. And that organization's Minnesota chapter approached the City Council of St. Paul to say, please, start this resolution against India. The plan is to go to Minneapolis next, and many cities. And this may not seem such a big deal to somebody just upar se, but their idea is all the city council members will go on to, the White House. I mean, the Congress later on, and then maybe White House, but they will become policy makers. And we need to break this, and we need a lot of support. And I would say one request, if I should make, is how you could play a role in harnessing the intellectuals in in the US, Indian Americans, Bengal, that way, if they can come into the movement, join voices like American for Hindus, then it makes it easier for us to counter that. So thank you. That'll be my only request for you. Thank you again for this excellent session, Ji.
Thank you very much. I mean, I don't really need to add to what you've said. Only thing I can only suggest is that I think it is time that the Indian Americans leverage their undeniable clout and strategic position which they occupy in society, in American society, to greater effect. I think we've played we sometimes, as you admitted, sometimes we've been too preoccupied with our samosas in Bollywood. I think it's about time we take a little more proactive role. I know it's been it'll be reactive but when we perceive the threat, I think it's best to rise to that challenge rather than let it be ignored. And yes, sometimes we smiled when we heard, an odd city council passing a resolution against the CAA and all that. I mean, I'm sure they had a profound knowledge of the intricacies of Indian immigration laws. But, I think also at the level of another thing which we noticed during the CAA and the challenges which came up at this time, Kashmir, was that while we were relatively successful in convincing governments, we in India had less or more mixed success when dealing with larger civil society. And that gap was exploited by our enemies and opponents. Sometimes successfully, but they went ahead and they did it. They perceived that gap. So I think that's a learning experience which we too must less. That it's not enough to just persuade governments. We have to also engage with civil society in each country. And I think that's where the diaspora plays a very, very important role. And I think, the sort of constant engagement between organizations in India and the diaspora organizations is very, very important in that respect. Whatever help we can extend on our part, we're always willing to do. And I'm sure you have your own strength and your resources and your intellectual wherewithal to also counter it in the best way.
Thank you so much, Swapanda. Great question, by the way, Shobhaji, and it actually speaks our heart. Many people try to, tag that word, why American for Hindus, why? But they don't understand that this is such a strategic initiative, We are always believe in Sukhana Bhavantu, we believe in Vasudeva Kutumbukam. But when we get marginalized, when we get tagged as someone, as an aggressor, where we are always been victim, you have to stood up. We have to bring everybody to make them understand that what value system we believe in. So great question and the challenges that we are facing. So my next question I would ask Sudebji, who is another technologist and he works at Amazon and helps a lot of people with his e-commerce business. Great company. Sudebji, why don't you, he's originally from Calcutta, and why don't you ask your question to Swapanda?
Yeah, Namaskar, Swapanda.
Namaskar.
Thank you so much for that fantastic explanation of things in Bengal. And I think, thank you, Judhajit and Dr. Japra for setting this up, creating this platform for us, for the diaspora, bringing us together. Swapanda, I think to continue, as Shobhaji mentioned, like we are waking up and we are trying to find a place in the American politics, trying to find a place, what we stand for. Like we have these big ideas like Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and the whole world is our relatives. But on a tactical level, we never really had made a great impact. So my question to you is, how do you think we can connect with the intellectual class from India, where people like you can come and we can create this environment in the universities and high schools and the places where the younger generation is coming out, so that we change this narrative? And the part, as you mentioned, that we were not able to convince the civil society, because as majority of Indian intellectuals in North America, as you mentioned earlier, are very much leftist. So how do we create this, promote a more of a centrist, rightist, or a more positive Indian views in this media? Like, is there any plans for the government and how we can help out on that? And as part of American Hindus, how we can help on that side? So
yeah, thank you. It's a very it's a very relevant question, because the problem which we are facing today is not merely that there is a hostile environment within certain sections of American society, but that what is happening in the campuses is influencing a very significant section of the Indian students who are coming to these universities and taking these ideas back with them into India and infecting it with this sort of woke culture which is so prevalent today in there. So it's not an American problem, it's become an Indian problem also. I would say that, I mean, my personal experience is, I've never, incidentally, in all these years, I am to date never got an invitation from a single American university. I've spoken extensively in Europe, in the United Kingdom, in universities there, but never in the United States. Somehow I've never had the opportunity of crossing the Atlantic for an intellectual pursuit. But never mind. But that also tells you something. It tells you how closed the system there in the American universities are. That they only will entertain this. Political correctness has gone insane now. It's really it's gone to a ridiculous extreme. I think most of our community, particularly in the West Coast of the United States, are people in very, very highly placed strategic positions. But they're mainly in the scientific and technology and medical spheres. Very few of them are actually in those which we call the liberal arts. And that's a big shortcoming from our point of view. And the so-called people who are supposed to be intellectuals are supposed to be those who are in the liberal arts. I say this having spent all my life doing the liberal arts myself. But there is always this thing that, and also the people who are the techies, the scientists, the doctors, they always feel, why should we get involved in all these things? So there is also that. You all have also opted out of it. And it is that which is also good. Now, I think in America, money talks. Unfortunately, it talks a bit too much. I think there are times when confronted with these things, certain amount of sanctions on your community's part, on some of them can be done if it is possible. But more important, I think, in an organized fashion, as was done in the case of the Californian textbooks. Organized interventions are sometimes necessary. You might not win those interventions initially, but at least you're knowing that we are there. So be careful. Someone is also watching. And I think that is very important to get that. Meanwhile, I would say bolster up your community resources, organize more sort of educational thing for teenagers, especially those sort of people who haven't yet gone to university as yet. Because once they go to university, they go into a different stratosphere, at least for them. So at least more community functions, whether a Bengali community, Kannadiga community, Marathis, the Tamils, whatever they are, within them. But unfortunately, that's where they engage the most. So at that level, it's got to be done. I mean, there's no hard and fast prescription for it. But all I'm saying is that in India, we are recognizing more and more that unless this issue is addressed right in America, it's going to impact in India quite a lot. The manner in which Indian journalism, just to take a very small example, has been totally distorted by these so-called journalism schools, by graduates of these so-called journalism schools in the United States. They've set up very different standards, and all that we knew as sacred to us, all that we knew as our conventional wisdom, they want to turn over. And they bring with them crazy theories, which in its place prove infectious, and there are a large number of American agencies which are working. One of the main reasons why they're targeting Indians is because the amount of restrictions we've put in the path of evangelical missions. We have imposed a lot of restrictions on the free flow of funding for conversions. It's very difficult for those church bodies to actually get their money across in India now. So they're bound to hit back. And unfortunately, sometimes our sort of Islamist friends take advantage of that and egg them forward as the main front line, which we've seen. They stand in the back and they allow those guys to go in the front. So there are complications, but let's rise to the challenge. I mean, this is perhaps not you know about it far more than I do. So this is something.
Perfect. Thank you, Shapanda. Now our London friends are pinging us that they also need a opportunity to ask a question. So the next question will go to Deb. So Debji and Manikda, I know that there are a lot of folks have joined from London and the Manchester and the different part of UK and Europe. So why, Deb, you don't, let's go with the question to Shapanda, please.
Thank you, Judajit Bhai. Thank you. Shapanda, namaskar.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, this is Dev Mukherjee. I am a Kolkata boy. I studied from Calcutta University, again, as you said, in economics, which produced the Nobel laureate of this year, Anirban, Dr. Banerjee. His father was my professor. And, I'm currently settled in London, and I also happen to study in Delhi School of Economics, so I'm also part of Delhi. So my question to you is actually with reference to what you brilliantly described as, the declinology. Now you see, Bengalis and the Bengali talent, there's been an exodus, migration from Bengal to rest of India and to the world. And the reason is, unfortunately, we Bengalis don't have the genetic gunas, as Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, to the guna of enterprise, to make a business. Otherwise, we ourselves would have set up the industries in Bengal. The government being adversary, given CPM and TMC, whatever, for the last 40 years. Now, I'm presuming with a lot of hope that in 2021, BJP is coming to power in Bengal, with a lot of hope. But we need intellectuals and people of caliber to be in the BJP government, not the same class of people which you had in CPM and now in TMC in government. And we need people to invest in Bengal, because mind you, the intellectual development doesn't come out of, hungry stomachs, hungry bellies. It comes from, if you look at the families, relatively middle class, upper middle class families. So we need your help in ensuring, assuming that BJP is coming to power, that the Modi government, Modiji's brilliant work that he's doing for the entire country, you need to impress upon Modiji to have some rest of Indians to invest in Bengal so that the industries come up. Because unless those industries come up, the intellectual rise and renaissance of Bengal is not going to happen ever again. So it is a request to you to, help in that direction towards that investment in Bengal.
Yeah. I think I take your point, Dave. I think you're also very right in saying one of the biggest problems in the Bengali mindset is what we call Padosri Katorata. The culture of envy, which hates success, which which glorifies poverty. I mean, I often say that some of the films of Bengal, where somehow unhappiness as a virtue comes across and has become a sort of part of life. I know I make myself very unpopular to my fellow Bengalis by saying that I think, Ritik Ghatok or Mrinal Sen sometimes specialized in this. Koshte koto shuk. So we have to get out of this particular
You're
thing.
absolutely right.
We have to get out of this syndrome. We have to get out of this syndrome. And yes, probably you're right. The first kickstart has to come from people who at one time had a stake in Bengal, who left it for different ways. Half the Marwadi industrialists of India had still traced their roots to Calcutta. All my Marwadi friends in Delhi and Bombay, I speak to them in Bangla. They come to me, অনেক দিন চচ্চড়ি খাও নি একদিন আসছি তোমার বাড়িতে, those sort of things. So they still have a certain feel for Bengal. Shishir Da is here, he'll be able to confirm what I'm saying. So we have to initially leverage that. But there is ultimately, there is no substitute for rekindling that spirit of enterprise in Bengal. And that really requires, that intellectual mindset revolution is very, very important. Okay, we have to get out of the glorification of poverty. That the third world syndrome, in India, we have to get out of this third world syndrome. And Bengal more so, because in Bengal, you've got into the fourth world.
Good one, Shapunda. I mean, as you mentioned, I don't know why we, that somehow make poverty, just glamorification of poverty, that koste shuk. So that's a nice one. And so Manikda, I mean, we have Manikda from Manchester, I believe. Manikda, why don't you go with your question, please?
Yeah, thank you. Shapunda, I just wanted to inform you, you'll be surprised to know that I've been a BJP supporter for the last 40 years. So when I was in Shillong, doing my PU, pre-university in late 70s, 79, that's when the All Assam Students Union movement started against Bangladeshis. And there was no difference between Hindus and Muslim Bangladeshis. It was only BJP which said that the Hindu Bangladeshis are not infiltrators, they are refugees. So that's when I decided that this is the party for me. And I've seen Hindu houses of Bengalis burning in Shillong from my hostel terrace. So anyhow, that's 40 years back. And one thing I would like to ask you, I think you may have already answered it, but there's still a feeling among Bengalis, left liberal Bengalis, that BJP is a communal party, North Indian party. So one day during a dinner, I said something pro-Modi, and someone said, aren't you ashamed to be a Bengali and supporting BJP? I said, why should I be ashamed? BJP founder was a Bengali, Sri Shama Prasad Mukherjee. It was, of course, called Bharatiya Jana Sangh, which name changed to BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party later. So why should I be ashamed? I'm proud. And you already mentioned that Swami Vivekananda's messages, which were pro-Hindu about frogs in a well and all that, those were changed into something secular, left liberal. So do you feel that the Bengali Hindus can ever be converted? Because I think many of them, a big chunk of them, are absolutely brainwashed. They're leftist, and somehow they will go to their graves being leftist, and it's very difficult to brainwash them and turn them into nationalists.
Manikda, I mean, let me recount your experiences in Assam. The very same people who were part of the ASU agitation in the early 80s, today have turned 360 degrees. The chief minister of Assam in a BJP government, Sarvanan Sonowal, was a great ASU supporter for so long.
Exactly. I mean, that gives me a tremendous pleasure.
Manikda, let Shopanda answer. We have so many other also in the line.
See, so therefore that, just because someone was some way at the past doesn't necessarily mean that way in the future. I think one of the issues which Bengali Hindus are facing today is an existential issue, which is also one of numbers, which is the demographic change in the whole province which has taken place, where at least 4 of the border districts no longer are Hindu majority, where there has been an organized system of infiltration from Bangladesh, where large numbers of Rohingyas have been sought to be brought in. But far more dangerous than that is how subtly they've been attempting to change the language. Ramdhenu has become Kaldhenu or so Wrongdhenu, because Ram take ki kore niya jaye. The language itself, যেগুলোকে আগে দুর্গোৎসব বলা হতো, what used to be called দুর্গোৎসব, এখন হচ্ছে শারদোৎসব. পয়লা বৈশাখ is পহেলা বৈশাখ. So even Durga Puja is sought to be made into a secular festival. So this subtle and very concerted existential threat to the very integrity of Bengali Hindu existence is coming to the fore. Which is why today in Bengal, we are seeing something which we hadn't seen for a very long time. Not since the 60s. We are seeing clashes of people actually retaliating. Clashes, otherwise it used to be one-sided. So I am optimistic at least that there are a large number of Bengalis who are actually rediscovering what it means to be a Hindu Bengali. I still agree with you that the odds against us are quite formidable. The odds against us are quite formidable. But there is a discernible change, and recognize that change. And we have to work. So as I keep on saying, this is work in progress. This is work in progress. We have only begun the journey. This is a new party. It's an old party, but it's a new party. Because the project itself is very new. I'm optimistic. I hope, while I can appreciate your anger, I can appreciate your frustration, I think you should also recognize the excitement of trying to bring about a project like this.
Thank you, Shopanda. The next question comes from Middle East. We are trying to cover all the geographics. We'll come to US and India once again. But we have, Povitro, who is another guy, who is another brother of ours, working on this activism from long time. Povitro, why don't you ask your question to Shopanda, please?
Hello, everybody. Can you listen to me now? I'm audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Shopanda, আর একবার নমস্কার।
নমস্কার।
হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা আমি ওই একটু ওই মানে ভোকাল ফর লোকাল টাইপের একটু কথা বলতে চাইছি। Now I'll come back to Bengal only. Whatever you said, it obviously we have always been harping on those points only in terms of illegal immigrations, border issues, demographic changes. But now, having said all those things, 2021 election winning is kind of imperative for all of us, because I think we have come the closest to the striking distance. I think everybody will be on the same page, or at least on this point. But there are some, because we always navigate, we always patrol a lot of the Facebook pages, Twitter, and there's a kind of quite a disconcerting messages are going on, and the kind of narrative building is happening that BJP being a non-Bengali party, as I think some previous speakers also have pointed that out briefly. हम इसको कैसे address करना चाहते हैं? Because there are a lot of rural areas in Bengal. You know, you are always there on the ground. How things are changing, but at the same time, there is a disconnect that people do perceive us to be a non-Bengali party, which is trying to rule Bengal. And you know, low-level languages are also being exchanged on the medias, social medias. So that I think is something we should be able to look at. And I know, you can take the message to Bengal BJP, you can take it upstairs also. And also one more thing, I think, to win the election, community of interest also need to be looked at, the different verticals in terms of the professions, in terms of the kind of work they do. And I'm very sure that there are a lot of work is going on, and a very, very concerted moves are going on. So, if you can kindly, throw some light on this.
I think the first thing is that, yes, there is a perception in some quarters that this is a Meadow party. Straight, I'll be blunt with you. It's a Meadow party. It's a Bodo Bajar party. This sort of thing is here. It used to be said far more, it is said far less now. But it's still said in some sections. A display of extreme, and this is something we have to be very conscious about. And therefore, I have often told people that, be very culturally sensitive. That's the first thing. You have to be very culturally sensitive. I often say that cultural sensitivity, if you hear me speak Hindi, you will learn Bengali. So maybe that's a demonstration of how much Hindi speaking. But yes, it's a fact, and this is something which Mamata will play up in the run up to the election. It's something we are quite mindful of, and it's something. But I think more than anything else, what I need to impress upon you and people like you to actually take this message back home is that we have to win. There has to be a hunger to win. I sometimes, unfortunately, detect that there is enough hunger to defeat Mamata at the grassroots, but there isn't sometimes often enough corresponding hunger in the part of the BJP to win. So that hunger to win, that has to be somehow taken back. And that's where people like you can help. Anybody can help. All those who are part of the diaspora can help. Because in your own ways, you have a certain influence in the community. তো ওইটুকুই বলি এখন, কারণ যেটা বলেছেন সেটা কথাটা তো ঠিকই, ওটা দিয়ে আমাদের সবসময় মনে রাখতে হবে, আর যদি না মনে রাখি নিজেদেরই গড্ডায় পড়বো।
Thank you,
Swapan.
The next question comes from our friend Shoptik, who is in Hong Kong. And Shoptik, please go ahead. A long-time activist helping us in many ways. Shoptik, please go ahead. My great friend.
Thanks, Judah. Thank you so much.
What time is it in Hong Kong?
Yes, time 2 o'clock.
My God.
Yeah. For Bharat Mata.
Shwapan, he never sleeps. He is like a super passionate guy,
for Bharat Mata. Yes. So, Shwapan, my question here. I am a scientist here in Hong Kong, and my question is that the nature of politics globally is, as I see it, is changing. More governments are coming worldwide who are bringing in this nationalist idea to the forefront, whether it's in US or UK or in Bharat, in Australia, or China also, as I see, is kind of Chinese nationalism. So now every country who are government made from nationalists, they want to build their own supply chain, localized supply chain. Only one thing is moving across all these countries is innovation. Now, innovations essentially mean merging the science, technologies, and startups And Bengal has a very unique culture because we have a lot of scientists. There's a culture of science, there's a passion for science. At home, they tell that you have to be a scientist. How we can bring together this culture of innovation? I have a thought that maybe we can have hackathons where we solve problems for the state. And we've asked innovators from all over the world to come and solve these problems. And then we give them land, we give them some incentives, and we give them something to start up and then build a startup out of it. These people grow, they will bring in tech, they build technologies, and therefore they build ecosystem, and therefore there is a possibility that these companies will not go out bankrupt so easily. Can we do something like that for the state? What is your thought on it?
In Bengal, the encouragement of startups has been pathetic. I was reading only the other day that they once had a startup Bengal program, and I think they gave financial assistance to 10 startups. Now, 10 startups is not certainly going to be, is not going to really change anything in this world. Yes, there is a national program for startups. And I think really the part of the problem which we have arisen is that in Bengal, we have not incorporated many of the national programs into the state for different reasons. But mainly it's a false sense of vanity. That we don't really need the center. Well, you might not need the center. I mean, ideally, it's very good if you don't need anybody. But the point is, you don't have the resources at your own place. So the first important thing, I mean, I am not an expert in, the sort of evolution of the new value chains which are going to, or this new value, some supply chains which are going to come about. In one of the things about the Atmanirbhar Bharat, which you are trying to do is basically, you're trying to re-establish, reshape the supply chains to some extent. And let's be vocal about local is part of that initiative. Now, to get that going within the context of Bengal, first, I believe, needs the alteration, the modification, the creation of a wholesome environment. That's what we really lack. If the environment is not suitable, then how the hell are you going to? I mean, the Americans poured lots of aid into Afghanistan. But at the end of the day, it came to naught. Why? Because the environment there is not conducive. So it's creation of that environment, which is it's the beginning of any journey which has to take place. If you see it, you create that, and then you can start thinking of next step, here. All those other things, many of them, not everything, will fall into place. But I think the most important project which any new government faces is how do we restore that environment, get rid of that violence, get rid of that corruption. You get rid of all this, then you can start rebuilding institutions.
The rule of law, basically.
Basically, rule of law, a wholesome environment. That is this. Maybe it's rule of law is not the, but yes, rule of law is broadly speaking what it is.
Thanks, Shapanda. Next question will be from US before we go to India, which is from Sunil Ganuji, who is from Maharashtra, but very, very close to our causes and always there to support us. Another American for Hindu guy. Sunilji, please ask your question, Shapanda.
Namaste, Shapanda. So my question is about this. Now that our government is there for 6 years, is there any Indic civilization based literary festivals are started coming? Because so far it is stranglehold of left. We don't see those topics. We saw somewhere in the Pondi literature festival kind of, but I don't know whether it's a regular or something. So is it something happening where such topics are coming into fore and people are attending those literary festivals? So, second to that is, I'm hearing a lot of comments like Arundhati Roy and all, they're completely hate India kind of thing. what we can do about such things. They are really, really very damaging. It's very, very hurtful. Maybe I'm talking at emotional level, but they are going vocal too much. Straight away, I hate India kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So that narrative is, sorry, go ahead.
Regarding the literary festivals, yes, as far as the Pondicherry Literary Festival has been going on now for 3 years. It's one of the it's getting its growth has been very encouraging. But besides that, there have been other, like in Mangalore, there's one. There are other smaller festivals in Delhi. There's one in Ortha, which has been happening. So what these people have managed to do is they've successfully managed to break the monopoly of the left liberal over the festivals. They've still got a long way to go, because those people have the international collections. We are more within the country itself. And secondly, what we have to do is we have to try and bring in the Indian languages into this orbit. That is our new catchment area. We have to create such festivals in Ahomiya, in Marathi, in Bangla, in Hindi. Because otherwise what happens is, firstly, there is a premium attached or a snob value attached only to speaking English. Now you must create a sense of equal pride in the others and have engagements between the two. These are the type of projects which, as far as Arundhati Roy is concerned, there is an international market for India baiting. There's a huge market. You rubbish India and you get the people who get employed in the New York Times, for instance, I think you have to sell a sob story saying, oh, I'm an oppressed Kashmiri, so you get a place there. So this is sort of value system which helps, which says that Hindus are bad, Indians are worse. God knows, therefore India and since right from 2013, there's been a single-minded project, demolish Modi. All over the world, 2013 onwards. We survived the onslaughts. I think it's time we should also have some retaliatory action rather than that. But yes, Arundhati Roy, she's a famous person. She has an audience. She's popular in Manhattan more than she is in Matunga.
Love this one, sir.
Thank you.
So next question from Sudip Mojumdar da, who is a president of one of the Bengali organization in Amit da, please mute yourself. I'll come to you. So Sudip da, if you please go ahead with your question. Thank you.
স্বপন দা, সুদীপ বলছি,
হ্যাঁ বলুন,
বাংলায় বলছি।
বলুন।
আমার একটা প্রশ্ন আছে, খুব স্পেসিফিক টু বিজেপি ইন ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল। আমি এমন একটা ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড থেকে এসেছি যেখানে আমার ঠাকুরদা সেলুলার জেলে ছিলেন, ঠাকুমা ছিলেন মেদিনীপুর জেলে। ওই ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড থেকে আমি এসেছি।
Sudip, if you please ask in English, that will help others.
Okay.
One question in Bengali. I think that much you can give.
All right, that's all right. Yeah, I come from a family, very specific question to West Bengal, BJP, come from a family where my grandfather is in cellular jail for almost like 12 years. And my grandmother, Thakuma, was in Midnapur jail. So, in that sense, within quotes, nationalism is in the DNA itself. Now, the question is, what I really believe in BJP for West Bengal to have a solid base is that one needs to be, I won't say pretend, needs to be a little center left. If you're little center left, your catchment will become much more bigger, because historically, as you said, Swapan, the Bengali psyche is call it twisted, call it different, call it whatever. It's always a left leaning. Be it Netaji, be it Tagore, be it Swamiji, be it Aurobindo, everything is like a revolutionary left leaning, right? And that's the DNA. And if that DNA you can catch, because that notion of Hindutva which apply to the rest of the India doesn't really exactly a fit for Bengal. So I'm just again very specific to that. If you can adjust and if you can tell, then the catchment becomes much bigger and you can get much more support. Because right now this Congress, because people are sick and tired of TMC, the Congress and the CPM, the CPI, all are looking for a platform, and if BJP can provide that, it will be fantastic.
I take your point that there are certain aspects of the Bengali personality which are unique, sorry, there's some disturbance in my...
Guys, please mute yourself if you're not talking.
Sorry, there are certain facets of the Bengali personality which are unique, and that has to be recognized. And especially in an election where you've got 1 year left, and where you have the main project is one of actually removing a very unpopular government.
Yes.
I think that should be the priority. I've always said, একটু এটা মানে আমাদের ওই পাখির চোখের মতো ফোকাসটা ওখানেই রাখতে হবে. We have to be very focused in this and not raise in an election campaign too many complicating issues. Because what people really look for are simple messages. Elections are all about simple, catchy messages, as opposed to politics as a whole. I mean, I'm making a distinction here. Politics as a whole covers lots of other areas. But an election is, which is one aspect of it, is all about having to communicate simple messages. And here I think I take your point almost entirely, that it is important to communicate those messages. And therefore, the attack on Mamata has to be an attack saying that Mamata has let down the poor of Bengal. That Mamata has taken money away from the poor of Bengal. That is the thing.
Exactly. And that's
so
why
I take the point. Therefore, there are a lot of things in politics we speak about explicitly. There are a lot of things in politics which are implicit and understood. You understand that as someone who's practicing, I sometimes have to be economical with my words, but I take the sentiment here. I understand your sentiment almost entirely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swapanda. We have next question from Purnima Nath ji, who is originally from Tripura and doing wonderfully well in US. Purnima ji, if you please go ahead with your question. Just unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. Let her come.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Majumdar ji and Japra ji, for organizing this. I appreciate that. My question is very practical. Not in politics, let's say, not in India, but when we debate, when we support Hindu Dharma, or even Sanatana Dharma, or even India, BJP also, we get attacked. I mean, I'm a Bengali, and it irritates me to the core when I see another Bengali attacks me. Whether it's Jadavpur University or JNU, Jamia, AMU, clan or so, we know our Bengalis are intelligent. We know our Bengalis are quite educated. We know this is where the revolution came during British. So what has happened? What do we do right now? If you could, guide us how to debate, how to, show light to them, it will really help. Thank you.
Well, I mean, getting attacked from people in Jadavpur or from people in those sort of places has become an occupational hazard as far as I'm concerned. I've been sort of, last time I went to speak in Shantiniketan, there was a howling mob which sort of shut me up in an auditorium for about a few hours. So I mean, there's, when you come to speak in literary festivals, you get a whole mob trying to say I shouldn't be given a platform. So I'm quite accustomed to that, and it's part of the larger issue which we are talking about here. And I don't think there's an easy answer to that, because a lot of these people who are attacking you believe that you are guilty, in their words, of what is called false consciousness. They believe that there is one real consciousness, which they are the repository and they are the custodians of, and anything else which deviates from there is false consciousness. That's the way of thinking. It's an old Marxist way of thinking. And the diversity of Hindu thought, where we say joto mot toto pot, where we don't believe that there is a jealous God, where you can be a Shaivite, where you can be a Vaishnavite, or you can be a Nastic and still be considered a Hindu. This sort of way of thinking, that it's not a religion in the Semitic sense of the term, is something which we have to spend a long time in persuading people. Because this is obvious to us that dharma doesn't mean religion. It's something which is prone to constant misunderstanding. That Hindutva is not the same as rituals. It's not the same as the puja archa which people do. That it involves the collective experience of Hindus. These are complicated. These, to my mind, is a straightforward thinking. But for various reasons, over the past, since independence, we've been told that there is something called a scientific temper, and against that there is something called Hindu superstition. That is how it's been posited. And it's only now that people are trying to recover their own sense of inheritance, their own sense of belonging. And that has involved a lot of clashes. That has involved a lot of struggle also. And this is a struggle which sometimes we have partially won politically, but we have still to overcome everything in a more intellectual and in a thought sort of way. So I would say, Purnima, that you should be prepared for this show of hostility, but at the same time, you should be prepared to actually engage rather than do to them what they do to us. They spit on us, literally. I don't recommend that we should spit on them. I believe that we should engage continuously with them, but telling them that, look, you are as much a children of Bharat Mata as we are. You may have strayed. I mean, you may have decided that you have transcended Bharat Mata, but we still regard you as children. Just as we have never treated people who are Nastics as something outside the fold. Rationalists existed within the sphere of the larger Hindu ecosystem. And that sense of udarata is something which we have to show. And I think it's a patient battle. I hope we can conduct it. And politics is only one part of it. It's a very small part of it. There is life beyond politics. And actually, we are talking about a larger civilizational mission. So, which is what I think I like this politics, because this politics is only a small part of it.
Absolutely. There are two things we'd like to add here, Shapunda, as Purnima ji brought a very, very pragmatic question. We always, whenever we get that spitting, we always tell that one day we'll understand that we are also fighting your battle. It's just that you are not getting today, but one day we'll understand that you may not be there, but we are taking your battle too. And the second thing, when they come hard and try to malign the term Hindutva, we say that Hindutva is a Hinduism which resists, and that's why it really burns you, because you want us to take things sitting down and a duck, which is not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, the issue and problem we face, Majumdar Da, is in Hinduism now we have two terms, Hinduism and Hindutva, for good or bad, let's say. But in Islam, they talk about political Islam, but there is no specific term for the political Islam. So when we are struck with an issue, dharam ke issue, religion ke issue, we are unable to defend ourselves, and we constantly get targeted because of Hindutva. So now I am considering, or I have come to a term that Hindutva, Tattva is a Sanskrit word, and it means being, it means philosophy, it means ideology. It could be communism, the same way communism is used, Hinduism is used. So same way we could say communita, whatever. The Tattva is completely turned the Hinduism into a political agenda and targeting and giving an opportunity for the opposition to target us. And
Sure.
that's where
Purnima ji,
the
let's
conversation
hear out
come
from
in.
Shapunda, and that we have almost 10
Sure.
more people asking question. Let us hear out.
No, let's move. I mean, we can have a debate on this entire question, because it's a fascinating subject, which certainly needs to be addressed at different points. And all I can say is that at present, that Hindutva and the rituals of Hinduism, or the various thought processes belonging into the Hindu fold, are not the same. Hindutva involves an experience of the entire system. It's a sense of Hinduness, and it is implicitly political. It is implicitly political.
Sure. Thank you, Shapunda. We have our American for Hindus, one of the chairman, one of the very the initial members, and one of our guide, Krish Murthy, who is originally from Karnataka and very, very close to us. And Krish ji, why don't you ask your question for Shapunda?
Dasgupta ji, namaste. On behalf of Americans for Hindus, I want to share with you that I've been very fortunate to work under Dr. Japra ji for almost 40 years now. And I have seen what a great ambassador he has been of Hindutva from the 1980s. And his vision for Americans for Hindus is very strong to understand that the work being in India for Hindus is continued in America. I'll give an example of what you're saying. For example, you mentioned that you never came to United States to speak at a university here, and there is a reason for this. There is lobbyists from China and the Muslim world, which has infiltrated into this university systems, and they kind of have funded certain ways to make sure that their agenda is pushed and ours is curbed. China spends $2.5 billion in lobbying. Pakistan spends about $400 million, and India does spend $500 million. But the good news is India's $500 million is worth almost 10 billion with the advent of Modi. Our greatest message, we don't need that lobbying money to 90% of it because of Modi's leadership that has been accepted, and our India's traditional human value system, which is in the hearts of everyone, but they take us for granted because our greatest strength, tolerance, has been our weakness in some ways. What Hindus for America is doing is to make this, Purnimaji brought a lot of information, we all share this, we are bringing this thought process into the political system, and we are supporting candidates who understand Hinduism or of Hindu origin in the United States. Like Nisha Sharma is standing for elections here as a congresswoman, and our organization is supporting all of them. We are a super PAC, and Dr. Japra's vision is very strong to continue this. The question for you is that the efforts of Bharatiya Janata Party has to be geared in conjunction with what we do from here. For example, India does spend almost $500 million in this lobbying. I would like to see the Ambanis, the Tatas, and Narayan Murthis come together as a think tank and advise the US government how to do about this, how to channel these funds rightly into the other systems as a strategy in addition to the production that you were talking about. That's my suggestion to you. And on a lighter note, I just want you to know that my mother voted for Modi ji at the age of 95 on his first election, and she voted again for him at the age of 101, and she is 102, and she's very happy with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Murthy ji. Shishir Pajoria is here, who's from the OF BJP. I'm sure he'll be able to carry some of these messages which you've given into the right quarter. And I think, and I wish you best of luck in ensuring, along with Dr. Saab, that you're ensuring the political empowerment of Hindus in this, crafting strategic alliances, ensuring that your clout is, I think we should learn a lot from the Jewish diaspora of how successfully they've worked. And in fact, I've always found the manner in which the Jews, despite having a very small number of people, have been able to influence the system in a way which is quite profound. So that's something which is learning, and I think we have to work in a direction whereby the Hindu community in the United States is politically empowered and strong, and their influence is commensurate with their economic standing. Your economic standing is right up, but your influence is still not there. So that both of them meet at some point, I think. I wish you all the success in that endeavor.
Thank you so much, Apunda. We have Rishi Bagri, as you know, he always try to help us on this social media war or social media battle that we are fighting against this narrative creation. So Rishi, you'd like to, I know you have a question for Swapanda. Why don't you go ahead, please?
I'm like one of the very big fan of Swapanda, and I like, it's always a delight to hear him. And I just want to ask a very, going back to, coming to the West Bengal election 2021, we have seen a very diverse trend in the voting in the Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha. In the Lok Sabha, whenever we BJP always get a very higher vote share, but the same when we face the same thing in the Vidhan Sabha, the vote share goes down almost by 7 to 10%. So you see, what is the possibility that you see that it won't happen in the 2021 election in the Bengal?
Yeah, but I'm glad you mentioned this point, and I think this is a point which I've often tried to make to some of the over-exuberant and over-enthusiastic BJP people who say victory is always there. That you have to present yourself. You've presented yourself as a national party. You got whatever success you got in 2019 on the strength of riding piggyback on Modi ji. Modi ji was the biggest input. Mamta's unpopularity and her excesses also played a part, but Modi ji was the lion's share of it. This is an election which will be fought not to make Modi ji Chief Minister of West Bengal. This will be fought. I believe that we have to really take it up on how much of a local character you can give to the BJP in West Bengal. So each political party, there is a national character to it, but it also has a very strong local face. In West Bengal, the national face is very good. The local face is not that appetizing. It's got its problems, as you well know, and you live in Calcutta, so you know that. So it's trying to close that gap, which is the biggest thing. And most important, and I think this is where I'm talking about cultural sensitivity. That cultural sensitivity of making it very much a local brand is so important. And therefore, to make a very rounded approach to take care of, to ensure that the Hindi face is not overused, because these are very touchy, sensitive issues. To always have the Bengali idioms which are placed in thing. The imagery has to be very, just like you've got Durga behind you. It's a similar sort of thing. It's this very similar sort of thing that we have to do. I mean, I'm sure you will help us in that project since you're
Swapan, you mean to say that we are moving towards more of a presidential type of election even in the Vidhan Sabha? In Lok Sabha, we have already moved toward presidential sort of elections. But even in Vidhan Sabha, you think that a face matters or more? Because I was in Delhi election also. I participated in this last Delhi election, where we won 7 out of 7 Lok Sabha seats. But when we went to Vidhan Sabha, and with all might, it was not like we fought very hard, but still we did not able to breach even the double-digit mark.
And there is, when you're fighting something like Mamta, who's got a very strong face. But of course, the advantage this time, I feel, is that sometimes when you have a strong face, when that strong face becomes very unpopular, then there's a concentrated bout of energy removed, which is what happened to Mrs. Gandhi in 1977, which has happened to a lot of politicians. Sometimes when they make a very strong face, can sometimes make miscalculation, and an accumulated set of miscalculations can lead to this. So it's a campaign which has got to be very carefully managed. It's got to be a campaign which has got to be very focused, sensitized, and a lot of loose talk has to be avoided.
Thank you so much, Swapanda. As one of the important point, and thanks, Rishi, one of the important point that you mentioned about the brain drain, right? So as we have inter-country brain drain, Bengal might have the biggest portion of intra-country brain drain also. And the 1.3 million Bengalis in Bangalore that you mentioned, we have some strong representation from there also. Because Bangalore, with the B of Bangalore and B of Bengal, it has almost become an extension part of Bengal these days. So we have Anirban is also my school junior from Narendrapur, and we talk about Swamiji a lot of time at Ramakrishna Mission. We have that legacy here. A lot of folks have joined from that school in this call too. So Anirban, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question for Swapanda?
Thank you, Judajita. Swapanda, hello again.
Hello.
See, one contextual question from, when I don my corporate hat and look at Bengal, especially in this post-COVID time, right? So the need of co-locating people in a particular state, which is forward-thinking and employment-friendly, might shrink to by a larger extent, right? As we move towards the post-COVID world. And when we sit in some decisions about, looking towards Bengal, and mostly what we discuss is that do we go and tap the right students from the right colleges and bring them over to Bangalore or Noida, right? So what confidence do we bring into those conversations for the future forward? That again, do we not only go there to bring talents over, we just stay put there and house talents there, especially now that post-COVID world has given us that opportunity.
See, I mean, one of the intriguing features about the COVID is that when I spoke about 60 to 80 lakhs of Bengalis who might want to leave, that's are outside who might want to leave. The people who are wanting to leave are actually the lowest rung of the value chain. They are not the skilled people. They are not the techies of Bangalore who want to leave Bangalore because, okay, but they are the people who have temporary jobs. They are the people who have work in restaurants, who feel themselves more vulnerable, who have a certain emotional pull, etc., who are working as construction labor. Those sort of people are wanting. So at present, the type of people who are returning to Bengal are basically the unskilled people. And for them, the challenges of accommodating them in the economy are going to be very different from the challenges which are going to take place of accommodating people who are more the skilled force. So how do we ensure that there is a reverse brain drain? I mean, reverse traffic, that people actually, even if they don't come back, are willing to invest some amount of their disposable income, and not merely in real estate. A lot of them invest in real estate, and that the entire new town is just a ghost town, partly because it's been Bengalis from all over the world and India have invested in a flat there, God knows. And there's no one living there to actually fill it up. So that's the challenge. And you know as well as me what the challenge involves and how important the creation of an environment. That's why I go back to this Raja question of how important creation of a certain environment. পরিবেশটা ঠিক করতে হবে. Without that thing, you cannot even begin the process. People will not even give you a second look. They will only start looking at you once they have that much of confidence. At present, there is zero confidence. And this is really what it is. And in this process, people like you and all of you play a very important role in trying to persuade people and also putting equal pressure on the BJP not to make mistakes, to realize how big the stakes are in this whole thing.
Thank you so much, Swapanda.
Thank you. So next question comes from Omlanda, who is based out of Santa Clara. So Omlanda, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. So my question is essentially, if you look at Pakistani ISPR or any of those people, every day they come up with some BS or another about India, and they will always there to respond to every real or imaginary, mostly imaginary charges against India and so on and so forth. In so far, what I have seen is in the last 6 years, the outbound communication from this government, and despite me being a Modi supporter, I must admit that outbound communication from this government about its decisions, about its next steps and so on, has been abysmally poor. And my question is, what is it that, being there intellectuals like yourself or Swamiji and other people, why is it so? I mean, why are we not setting up like a PR ministry or something like that, or an office that consistently deals with the outbound communication of this government about different ideas and policies?
I think you have a fair point there, that we have, by and large, our diplomacy has concentrated on governments, on government-to-government relationships. And on that count, we've been very successful. But our public diplomacy has not kept pace with it. And that's where we've kept open that wide arena, which has allowed people like the Pakistanis and some of the others, the leftists and others, to get in. And that's a big lacuna. And the more and more in today's conversation, one big takeaway for me, at least, has been the amount of worrying there is in the United States, at least, about this absence of this communication. This is certainly a takeaway, and this is something I hope Shishida is still there. I would like him to communicate to the people who do this work, that there is a need for a greater degree of official engagement, official explanation to get the logic, the rationale of Indian politics. We don't have to undertake the same dirty tricks which the Pakistanis do. It's not necessary. But a very straightforward, upfront communication, explaining, if not to, at least to our own people, what it's about. Once you explain to your own people, they themselves will disseminate the message. I'm convinced. That's at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Shapunda.
I've been noting all this, Shapunda. I've been noting this.
Yeah. Thank you, Shishida.
Thank you, Shishida. Shapunda, I hope you have 10-15 minutes to take two, three more questions. Is it okay?
Yeah, I'm quite exhausted, but never mind.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So next one we have for Subhuda Subramaniam Barayur, who is originally from Calcutta and with his Tamilian root and speaks both Bengali and Tamil so fluently from one of the top corporate world in India. So Subhuda, why don't you go ahead with your question to Shapunda, please?
Yeah, thanks, Judhajit. Hello. Good evening to you, Shapunda. My question is a little long-winded. I request you to please bear with me. See, the Renaissance in Bengal or the reawakening of Bengal, from what I hear you say, it's a kind of a political reset is required in so many aspects. A total mindset reset is required. So, do you think, or don't you think that just doing co-opting some cadres, doing some smart electoral math, which I admit is very important because the now is important as important as the future. So for the today, probably the exigency demands that the BJP also, has to do its own, I would say, alignments with cadre or with leaders or with elements who have had association with, the TMC or, the left sometime in the past. But don't you think for, on a longer term, and I've been saying this on many forums, I'm not very popular because of that, on that aspect, not too many takers, but don't you think for a sustainable model in Bengal for change to come in real time and sustain, the BJP has to spend more time in building a total grassroots organization, to counter every kind of obstacle which is going to come up its way. Even if they win the state, these very virulent opposition is going to be there, number one. Number two, especially given that there are very undesirable communal elements from across the border, which infest the state today. So I just, it's an observation and a question, both. Thanks.
Well, I think your observation, Mr. Subbu, is absolutely right, that the challenges are formidable. The challenges are quite daunting. And the exigencies of electoral politics necessitate creating a conditions where at least your people can at least start to build up a grassroots. Today, our people can't even go and distribute relief. In the COVID times, our MPs couldn't even go out because they had a quarantine notice slapped on them. Quarantine was used as a detention order. So you had this sort of petty tyranny at all levels. So to get relief from that, there is a certain immediate project which has to be had. And that immediate project necessitates entering into short-term understanding with people who have the common agenda of removing Mamata Banerjee. I kept on telling you, repeat the point which I made right initially, was that I see the BJP as still a very young party in Bengal. It may have been founded by a Bengali, but its roots in the soil of Bengal are still very, very shallow. And therefore, the project which you have to undertake is really quite challenging. And it requires the most careful, imaginative handling, because it's not merely internal challenges. You are faced with a degree of formidable external challenges, given the demographic mix of the state. Hindus make up only about now 70-72% of the population, if probably a little less now. And in voting terms, given the minority population's determination to vote en masse, strategic vote of that 28% actually goes up to 32% sometimes. So you can understand how difficult, how formidable the political challenge is, and how it's important to make that political breakthrough as a prerequisite for doing anything else. So I hope that
I agree.
sort of,
I agree.
that's
I agree, Shop.
that's the
I
sort of
completely agree.
the context in which I think so I don't think we disagree with each other at all. I'm just pointing out why it's very important to not underplay the importance of the immediate also in the context of Bengal.
Of course, I agree with you, Swapan.
Thank you.
I agree.
The next,
Thanks.
thank you so much. So next question, I will have two more questions, and then we'll request Dr. Saab to kind of conclude and with a thank you note to Shapunda. So the next question is Sachindranath ji, who is originally from UP, very strong OF BJP Karyakarta here. And Sachin ji, why don't you ask your question to Shapunda?
Yeah.
I know you have
Namaskar, Sapanda. My question is regarding the the workers who are coming back to the respective states due to this COVID-19 situation in India. So in the Bengal also, there the millions of workers are coming back. So we still not sure how the Mamta ji is going to accommodate them in terms of the employment situation and all. So what is the BJP plan? To get them into the BJP fold. My question is very direct. How can we, how can we come into the BJP fold so that they can be a BJP voter in upcoming elections?
The number of workers who are coming back, who have expressed a desire to come back, are somewhere in the region of 40 lakhs.
Yes.
Somewhere in the region of 40 lakhs. Mamta Banerjee is unwilling to take back so many. She's been putting one obstacle under the other, first by calling the trains Corona Express, which is very pejorative and derogatory to those people. Secondly, in trying to delay the arrival of trains as much as possible. And in fact, the message has already gone out that Mamta Banerjee doesn't want these people to come back to the state. So at least to begin with, she has a very negative perception of what these people are all about. At the same time, what complicates the situation is that in many parts of West Bengal, especially in the more remoter the village you go, those who are coming back are viewed with a degree of suspicion as possible human carriers of the disease. Sometimes they may be, sometimes they won't be. And finally, there's also the complication which has been created that one of the Mamta Banerjee with great alacrity sent a train to Ajmer Sharif, where there were a large number of stranded pilgrims. So when it comes to Muslims who are stranded, she was more willing to accommodate them. So there are these various cross currents here which are playing the role. Now, the idea of whether there will be any clarity between now and the elections is really what we have to look at. So we have different strains operating. I don't know exactly how it will play a role. I think we have to wait a little bit more before we get the sense of how many of these migrant workers actually choose to stay in the long term in Bengal. Also look back at the situation where with wages rising elsewhere, whether they will after a little while choose to go back. So I would say the situation at present is very fluid. All we can know is we are seeing various tendencies working, some working in our favor, some working against us. Both are working. So I'm being very honest with you. Okay. So this is how things stand. So I don't think there's a definitive answer as yet. I think it has to be observed because it's best to observe these things, get a sense of what exactly has happened before we make a strategy. I think the worst thing in politics you can do is to evolve a strategy without knowing the ground realities.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Shapanda.
Swapanda.
Thank you. So we'll take 2 more questions and then end. Vandana Mangali.
2 more seems to go on. The 2 is a very flexible.
Shapanda, it is almost becoming like a Dada Arekta Gan.
Judah, I have a question.
But this is sorry. So Debotosh,
second question. 30 seconds.
Yeah, Debotosh, please go ahead.
Should I go? Shapanda, thank you for your joining us and enlightening us. So since India is a secular country and we cannot teach Hindu Dharma in the curriculum, so can we teach Indian philosophy, include Indian philosophy in the curriculum so that the Vedanta, Mimamsa, Shankar, Yoga, so in that way we can teach the foundation of Hindu Dharma in the curriculum to stop the conversion of Hindus, so in an academic level and theologically.
You see, I mean, this is a very interesting point you're making, because I mean, India is probably one of the very few countries where we don't have faculties in universities which actually do serious academic study of religion. It's like we are the only people, we do not have theology faculties at all. We have something called Islamic studies, we have something called Buddhist studies, and then we have philosophy. So all this is actually channeled into philosophy. The entire gamut of Hindu thought is actually channeled into philosophy. It's there. I'm not saying that it's not there. It's there. I think there are 2 or 3 things which have to be done. One is that recognize that theology, the study of religions, is a legitimate body. It's a legitimate academic exercise which has got to be taken up. And secondly, that when you're studying Sanskrit, for instance, we have large number of people studying Sanskrit. But people are studying Sanskrit for what? They are studying Sanskrit because it's being viewed as a passport to becoming a pujari. They are not studying Sanskrit in the same way as they used to study Sanskrit earlier, 100 years ago, where Sanskrit was only a language which was important in the study of these larger issues. Logic, grammar, philosophy, all this was part of the whole thing. So there is a certain distortion in how it is being viewed in India, in the curriculum. And this is the gap which has been exploited or taken advantage of by certain Western universities, because they are the only ones who are teaching it in a different sort of way, in a modern sort of way. So that has to be, this is something of a curriculum revision, which I think will have to be taken up in a big way, not by the HRD ministry, but by the academics themselves. You see, I think sometimes we make a mistake of thinking that it's the government which must initiate it. I think the important thing for endurance, for longer lasting and for more greater effectiveness, it is for the sections of the academic community, for people who are the real pundits, to actually come and push this. They haven't so far done it in any meaningful way. So it's up to them to do it. The ministries and all that can help you in the process. But the real initiative has to be taken from amongst the academic community.
But if education department gives the money, funding, that's money.
No, that can come. That can come. Money can come. Money can come. It's not. Money will.
I'll follow up.
Yeah. Please. The money is not the issue. Money will be given. The larger problem is not at the university level. The larger problem is at the school level, which is just because it's a state subject. Remember, education is a concurrent subject. So there is a state intervention at the states level and at the central level. So you have to have both of them being synchronized together.
Thank you, Shapanda. This is really the last question. And Amida, please go ahead. Make it crisp and small.
Hello.
Hello, Vandana ji, you are there? Okay, go ahead quickly, please. Crisp one, it is already midnight there.
Oh, I am so sorry. Thank you for putting Swapanda on. I'm grateful. Hello.
Hello. My turn, ma'am.
Wait,
Sorry,
Amit,
sorry,
we'll come. We just missed Vandana ji. Next will be yours. But let's keep it quick.
Just a minute. Just a minute. It's a very important, Swapanda.
Amida, please, just hold on for a second. Let's quickly finish Vandana ji. Then we'll take your turn. Let's keep it crisp. Vandana ji.
Yes, Namaste. I'm calling from Minneapolis, and my specific question, other than that, I'm a great fan of both A4H and Swapanda. I specifically want to know if there is a link or a source where we can write to our government officials about this constant bashing on CAA and RC. I'm trying to write to all the elected governments in my area about how in fact, it's factually incorrect, the kind of things that are being spoken in these city councils, where they start with the invitation to welcoming South Asian diaspora, but it's actually only for the Muslims diaspora, and the Hindus are getting psychologically lynched everywhere. And it is very upsetting. We haven't had a moment of peace since the month, and I don't find a resource in the Indian government's website or something where we can actually speak very intelligently about what's going on with CAA and NRC. So thank you. If I could get some kind of a link where we could write effectively and very factually about exactly what and how wonderful India is for the Muslim community. Thank you.
Well, all I can say is I don't know about the links in the official websites, but this is an issue which has been debated quite robustly within India. And I'll just make one or two very simple points. One, the CAA confers citizenship on particular persecuted minorities, most of whom are from erstwhile East Pakistan, Bangladesh. Like they confer, they do not take away anyone's citizenship. The idea that it takes away someone's citizenship is a travesty. It confers citizenship. And these are particular things which have been followed by specifying people who are going to give. The United States has a long history of doing this. And these have been documented in particular Indian writing for a long time. This was pointed out in our government communications at the different levels, but they exist. I don't know if they exist in the official sites or not, but at least if you follow the debates in India, these are issues which have been debated. I mean, we had a very energetic debate within India on this subject, and there's a whole load of writing which you can certainly take avail of to bolster your case, to suggest that what we are doing in India is exactly almost occasionally eerily similar to what the United States has done at various points in its time, confer citizenship on specific minority persecuted groups. And this is what exactly India has done. So I urge you to look at those the writings which have taken place in India.
And we'll just close it. It's already midnight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Is it my turn now?
Yeah, Swapanda, sorry. Amida, let's keep it small and crisp, and then we'll end it.
I always keep it short. Namaskar, Swapanda. And you are a scholar. You are an avid reader. I could see all the books behind you. And let me tell you this, and this is not a question basically. This is a little bit of a request to you. This generation is blog generation. They don't read. The maximum they read is blog. That's it. That's it. So what I did is I team up with the ex-director of IIM, Dr. Pareshwar. And let me share the screen, please. I just wanted to show you one quick second, and that's it. Please allow me to share the screen. So I have created a blog, and it's called, can you see my screen? It's called Critical Thinking. It's with the ex-IIM director, Dr. Pareshwar. And we are creating lots of Hindu-based philosophy critical thinking for this blog. And would you please, could you please contribute some of your writings here? and because we are going to make it very big, and that's what Dr. Podesar wants. He's not happy with me that I have only written one article, but can you see the screen? I just wanted to show it to you, and just wanted your contribution for this blog. It's called criticalthinking.guru. And this for new generation who can only read 1.5 pages, not more than that.
Shwapanda, Amida, you can just put that on chat. Everybody will able to see that.
Yeah, but that's Swapan, I just wanted to make this a little request. So it's not a question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll certainly look at it. I'll certainly look at it.
I'll put this link on the.
Sure. Thank you so much. And Shwapanda, taking time out. It's almost midnight. You spent so long with us. I would request Dr. Saab to put a closure in note. And thank you everyone from joining from the different part of the globe. This is a great opportunity for us to hear out from probably the topmost intellectual leader that we have right now from Bengal. And we look so much forward to it. Thank you. Dr. Saab, please.
Thank you, Judhajit. I think you said it all. It's so late, and we are really thankful from the core of our hearts on behalf of all the people who attended this interactive session. Very informative, a lot of knowledge, and of course, very enlightening. And it has inspired us all. Like Swapanda, you said that this is going to create the excitement, which you really have brought it up, and hopefully we'll have a lot more these kind of interactive sessions where we can share and get your mind share as well as your knowledge and spread all over the world. Not only hopefully these American universities, which we are working with at the very low level, like some people said, and creating some media houses which can be pro-India, so where we can do interact. And some of the people who suggested some of these requests for the Indian government or from other media houses from India to work with us. I think we'll work on those things also. And political empowerment, both back in Bengal, India, United States, we're gonna all work together. And once again, from the core of our hearts, we wanna really, really thank you. And hopefully see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you, Judhajit. Thank you, Shwapanda.
One second. We are just ending with Shondip Nath Da, our Bollywood lyricist, great lyricist. Shondip Da, if you add some nice tune to it.
It was a fantastic discussion, and it was very enlightening, and I'm really thankful to Shwapanda for his energy. But I will mention 2-3 things. When Mirza Ghalib visited Bengal, he said about Bengal, because a lot of questions about Bengal, they are saying BJP is a non-Bengalis party. कि अजब कौम है ये बंगाली भी 100 साल आगे भी 100 साल पीछे भी. So Bengalis are like that. But one question is in my mind कि we have a very good players in BJP in Bengal, but we have not a captain. So is it going to create a problem in this 2021 election? Because we have to win because of COVID and this Amphan. The Mamta is exposed. She might be a very good politician, but she's a very bad administrator. That is proven. So I think next time, because Dada is exhorted, I know if Dada can give one line or, but he partly has given all answers. So, and it was really very fantastic arrangement. And I'm looking forward for this kind of enlightening sessions more and more.
Thank you.
I have unmuted all of you. Please go ahead to Dada.
नहीं बांडेड अभी नहीं करना है, उसको सूखने दो.
I have unmuted all.
Jai Mata Di.
So much.
Darun, and you can go
very much, Shwapanda.
খুব ভালো লাগলো.
Thank you from London.
Thank you, Judhajit. Thank you, Shwapanda.
Everybody.
Thank you, Judhajit. Thank you, Dr. Saab.
Of yourself.
Really great that you have given us so much of time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Judhajit. Thank you,
ভালো থাকবেন।
সাবধানে থাকবেন।
Thank you.
আচ্ছা দেখা হবে।
আবার দেখা হবে।
Right.
Thank you very much.
ধন্যবাদ everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.